Calling to order the Monday, July the 10th meeting of Committee of the Whole Administration and Operations. We're at the South Edwardsburg Community Center in Johnstown. I want to welcome several members of our community to our meeting tonight. I think all members of the committee are here as well, and several members of staff. So the second item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. There are no changes, correct, to it unless somebody brings one up, man.
Through the chair, we are looking to move item 8K to be above 8H.
Correct. So I'm going to propose that, I think, before I call for a mover and a seconder. Remind me again, I know I have that written, it's on my phone, but what was it again to J to before H?
Correct.
Yes, so everybody understand that we would be taking item J, moving it in, sort of like G, A, and B. Everybody understand? Okay. Do I need?
Through the chair is going to move along with you.
So then I need a mover and a seconder for the approval of the agenda as amended. Moved by Councilor Ward, seconded by Councilor Smale. Discussion on that, changes or any further changes? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Disclosure of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest and the general nature thereof. Does anyone have a conflict or pecuniary interest to declare? Hearing none, what a business arising from the previous committee of the whole meeting minutes. If there are anyone, does anyone have any items from the previous meeting minutes? Seeing none, then we can move on to number 5, which is delegations. We have 2 tonight. Looking forward to both of these. We have Mr. Eric Connell from the Spencerville Fair doing a presentation tonight. Come on up, Mr. Connell. There's podium set up for you, and I believe maybe you have some slides to go through as well. Yeah. So 10. Mr. Connell, 10 minutes to committee. We're pretty light with that rule, and then I'm sure that the I pre-read the presentation. I'm sure there'll be a few questions in regard to it, so we'll open the floor to the committee members to ask some questions too as well. Okay, all right. Okay, welcome, Eric.
Good evening, Mayor Deschamps and councilors. My name is Eric Connell. I am the second vice president of the Spencerville Agricultural Society, and tonight I also have joined with me our president, Mike Mills. We are here tonight to represent the Spencerville Agricultural Society. We are a non-for-profit that serves as our community's connection between rural and urban living, and we very much take pride in the collaboration. The role we play in our community and neighboring townships is representing and celebrating agriculture through teachable and educational moments. We host many events and fundraisers around the year, which bring a great deal and great amount of business to our visitors and visitors to our village of Spencerville and the township of Edwardsburg County. One of the events, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with, is the Spencerville Fair, which is a major attraction that has brought people from all over the province to Spencerville. This year, we're celebrating the 168th Spencerville Fair, which starts Thursday, September 7th until Sunday, September 10th. So, successfully executing our fair and year-round events for the past 168 years has not been possible without facing our fair share of obstacles. Our core foundation is built on the kindness and devotion of a small amount of committee of volunteers. Our core function, as a non-for-profit organization, we rely on the tireless dedication of people who work around the clock to plan these events and that we've all come to love. However, we have seen significant decline in volunteering interest over the last few years, specifically even more so than the pandemic, and it's honestly quite alarming. We face the financial burdens of attending to essential renovations of our venues, adverse weather conditions during the fair, and less than adequate attendance ratings. Consequently, our society has suffered a loss in sponsorship funding. We have struggled to effectively resolve this conflict. We've applied for countless grants, and we've even went as far as hiring somebody to help us with the grant application with no luck. Many people believe that our fair is rich and loaded with money, but that is actually not the reality or the case. Due to municipality bylaws, we are unable to advertise the fair to the North Road municipality and the town of Preston. This has become a major point of contention as both of these municipalities surround us. And a lot of our fair goers and volunteers are actually residing in those townships. We were unable to promote and advertise our fair here, which not here, but in those townships, which does impact us drastically. We suffer. And we suffer the lack of exposure, attendance, sponsors, volunteers, and we just aren't able to host the fair that we've all known, come to love and know. Our fairgrounds, as you may have noticed, have seen better days as well. So understanding all that, we are now coming to our township to ask for help, but also for a partnership. We are looking to you to help us in ways that we know other townships help their fairs. We know that once we build back our volunteers as sponsorships, the rest will follow. Tonight, the primary topic that I'd like to propose is adding a temporary Sensible Fair bus stop to the river route. The new route would run Saturday, September 2nd until Monday, September 11th. The bus route would include a central location in the fairgrounds for pickup and drop off, and would travel to and from the existing river road stops in Edwardsburg Cardinal, Prescott, Augusta, and Rockville. We would also like to ask that the bus hours be extended to 12 a.m. between Thursday, September 7th and Sunday, September 10th to accommodate fairgoers for the fair weekend and to optimize our attendance. In order to increase our reach and appeal, we would like to even offer our volunteers free transit via the new route. They would be provided a badge to be presented upon entering the bus, which we would be happy to coordinate with you on. Lastly, we would like to include the Sensible Fair advertising and bus route information on all operating buses beginning in August and running to September 10th. I will admit that I do understand the issue of our proposal, but we are confident that this initiative will benefit both the Sensible Fair as well as all of the municipalities. On average, our fair brings in to 20,000 people in our 4 days. The new route would increase traffic to the downtown of Centerville and other townships. It would mean that it would be a much safer means of transportation, an increase an inexpensive alternative way to get to the fair, a decreased stress related to parking shortages on the fairgrounds for fairgoers and fair volunteers. Furthermore, this proposal offers a unique opportunity for each municipality to contribute to our non-for-profit organization and by extension, our local businesses and economy. Some additional requests that we would like to make would be to add the home of the Sensible Fair to the Edwardsburg Cardinal Township signs, extend the placement of the beautiful flowers that are in the downtown core now up until Bryan Street and turning into the fairgrounds. Include a bookmark size flyer within the property tax notice that is mailed out to the residents of the township. And then get assistance with keeping our fairgrounds snowplowed and clean to attract more rentals of our facilities, which will in return help businesses in the downtown core as well as our local economy. So how will this help? The temporary bus stop on the fairgrounds will increase attendance to our fair by making it more accessible to those who may not have ever been able to get to our fair in the past. It will be an incentive for volunteers, which will bring more people who can join our volunteer database in the future. This will also expand our reach to businesses and the neighboring communities, which will bring additional sponsorships. The appearance of our fairgrounds will impact how fairgoers perceive our fair, as well as how they describe it on social media. Our small number of volunteers can focus on breathing life into the fair instead of burning it while trying to take care of our massive fairgrounds. With the township endorsements, community members will be motivated to get involved and volunteer. Our fair is other fairs in Eastern Ontario have demonstrated greater mutual success when their respective township has been involved and supportive, which we hope will be our experience too. Overall, we are looking for a long-lasting partnership for an institution that has been running for 168 years right in the backyard. So what's in it for you? Greater exposure to the village of Spencerville means a great deal to many. It means an increase and a higher increase of volunteers, not just for us, not just for you, but also the VIA that is currently being built in Spencerville. It will help unify the downtown core, which will increase the morale of the community while attracting interest from potential new community members. This will, of course, increase the overall employment rate and local economy. This will help prove the need and longevity of the river route. Helping us is an easy, cost-effective way to show your support for a historical fair. And furthermore, the fairground, with the fairgrounds, maintenance will increase accessibility to the community residents for recreational purposes, as well as the increase in appeal to and value to nearby properties. So ultimately, our continued growth means that your continued growth. That is where I'll end.
Awesome, thank you, Mr. Connell, that's a lot in a few minutes, that's good. No, you did fantastic. Okay, so I think I'm gonna open it up to the group for questions and comments, okay?
Yeah.
All right, so I think we were raising hands, or you wanna go over us? Let's go raising, let's go.
Just to clarify, it started out saying you were not allowed to advertise in Prescott and North Breville. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for me?
Yeah, so I don't know if anybody's familiar with term ag signs that are normally put around during, well, the next few months, you'll see them pop up. We're not allowed to put them in the North Breville town municipality. We received a letter from that township telling us that it was like kind of almost like this almost with promotion in there. And then the town of Prescott just simply only wants to focus on the events that happen within the town of Prescott and not surrounding ones that. I would understand if there was a fair that we were competing with, but that was their response on several occasions when I tried to reach out to them.
I'm just gonna ask for one clarification, that's just bag signs though, right? That's not print media, that's not anything else, just the yellow bag signs.
Absolutely, yeah, so that's because we pay for that and we do as much as we can with the radio station in Prescott. We don't have the money for the advertising to pay their fees, unfortunately. Yeah.
Further?
No, thank you. Thanks for the clarification. Thank you.
Deputy, you wanna go?
Sure. Mr. Connell, you said that you bring in 20,000 people over 4 days. What's your break even point? Do you know? Like if you bring in 50,000 and
We don't make profits. Last year, I would say is the first year in 15 years that we actually came out ahead. And we didn't do as much as we normally would have done in the last year because we didn't have the volunteers. And when I say we became a profit, we maybe had what $9,000 in profit, or that was quickly turned around and spent on our buildings. If you imagine that. And so.
And volunteers. My wife retired last year. She phoned the number, left a message, said her and another friend was interested to volunteer. Never got a response back. So how do we become volunteers if we leave a message? Now, in all fairness, she said she wasn't able to come to Monday night meetings because she takes care of the grandchildren, but she's more than happy to volunteer, but never heard a word back.
Well, this is the very first year that we have somebody who stepped up to be our volunteer coordinator. So we didn't have that in the past. We haven't had anybody in that role in the past. It's been normally twisting arms of family, friends, and everybody like that. So we now have a volunteer coordinator who's putting together a volunteer database for us to use. I'm sorry that happened to your wife.
No, but I'm just giving you an example.
If nobody answers the phone, I would say the best way, but like I put this everywhere on social media and everywhere, info@centralfair.ca is the best way to get in contact with us. We don't have somebody who's in the office 24/7 to receive it, so they get an email 24/7. So that would be the best way to get in contact with us.
And one more, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
That's it. For your bus, that's a complicated, that's not as easy as the way you wanted it. Because we're in partnership with Brockville, Augusta, Town of Prescott.
Yep.
And for us to get something like that, probably ready for this year at least, is next to none, if you want to. I mean, I'm just speaking on my.
No, I understand too.
Just because we gotta go to those 3 different municipalities and they have to take it to their counter at the end of the month. So that's, and whatever we can do, we're more than happy. I mean, my gracious, it means so much. I'm going in it this year for the first time with my chickens, so I can't wait.
Well, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Anyways, thank you, and anything you can do. You know, I should say anything, but the more we can do for you, the more we will come out and do for sure. You
And
have
I
our-
understand. what
you
the
have
timeline
your
is a year
support
that-
at this table for sure.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. And I understand what the timeline of it being July, I promise you, I've already, in my mind, it is October. I planned so far ahead that I do know that this is extremely late in the year. But I wouldn't know or not be able to present it to you without being here tonight. So if it's not this year, and it seems that like this is where the partnership that comes in with that, with the township would come in, is that this isn't all have to be done this year. This could be cascaded over the next coming years. We do have a small initiative that would be rolling out in the future for our fair. It's a small committee that I'm putting together, the future of the fair, and it's a 10-year plan to revitalize the entire fairgrounds. So. Just starting off, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council Ward.
Yes, unfortunately, I'm not having a lot of questions for you right now, but I think to the CAO, there's some things here that I think that I'd love to see us, I guess, unpack is probably the right term, and one of those would be, you know, I mean, we had plowing match signs all over our township last year, and then you would think that they would do something in kind for the Spencerville Fair, so I'd love to see us, you know, have that discourse with them to try and take a look at that. I'd also think, but it's something that we should be looking into to see if we can help and when it's late in the game. But you know, nothing's impossible. It just depends on how much it costs, obviously, in a lot of cases. So I mean, I'll put a motion at the end of the meeting if you want, but yeah, that discussion, going forward. So, yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. It's good, and I mean, the Spencerville Fair does great things, and you know, we've been going through it since we moved out here, essentially. So, and before actually.
I'm gonna go back this way, Karen. Sorry, I ended up going across the table, so I'm gonna give you the opportunity.
That's
My
okay.
apologies.
My first question was really related to not being able to promote it in Prescott. That's been answered, and then the River Rouge bus stop as well, so. That's pretty much all I had now.
Councilor Smith.
Oh, yeah, I just got a couple questions. You mentioned the area to put snow on grass back. Who does that for you now?
We have a dining volunteer who does it on the free time that he has, and he comes out and he does it. But it's when you can. Robert from the Norman, he does it when he can. And he's not allowed to.
Where do you plow in the winter time? I don't understand.
Where do we plow? We plow around the building because if we let the snow sit, it goes into the actual arena and it's caused a tremendous amount of damage in the past. So they'll go and plow it and just push it off to the side. Not just on their ground.
We plow our area around the place. And there's good plow parking lot up top as well. In there, when we have a bigger event. 300 or 400 people there, that parking lot right in front of them, going to cut it, so we do put on the hill, and we're on top of it.
Oh, yeah, I know you're not, I used to plow right through there. I was working for the township. And I've always said there's no reason why we plow the Carbon Arena forever.
Yeah, your arena's on.
30 more minutes in there wouldn't take her to manage on the plow truck at all. It would only take 30 minutes to plow. But I just wondered who was doing the free now.
This is what I like a dedicated volunteer,
Robert does plowing as well as,
the volunteer, yeah.
it's usually after the gas is done.
Is there much grass?
Well, yeah, there is quite a bit of grass, just even around the barns themselves. So if I join barn 1 and 2, and then the arena, and then the cattle barn and our chicken barn, that I'm not even talking about that parking lot up there, but like maybe those areas, there is quite a bit of grass that needs to be cut. We've had some events there over the last weekend. You know, we didn't get it quite looking the way that it should to have the magnitude of people, I think, through our fairgrounds. We do it.
To Mr. Hunter.
I don't know if there's any questions. It's been around since it started, so. Only one suggestion I would say, I think that would help the fair board, maybe if the fair association tried to partner with more other volunteer organizations and time sharing and one thing number of their buildings and stuff to get more volunteers to be on your big weekend, maybe you know, worked out a share agreement that they want to use the drone building or something. That's an extended cost of doing it, I know different ones. One organization I've been involved with particularly, that's the reason we don't use it, because the cost is too high. I know Lansdowne Lodge works extensively with Masonic Lodge. Up there, they do all the ticket taking and everything for the fairgrounds, and they get paid a certain amount, but they also get to use, if they want a fundraiser or something, they get to use their building for the kind of a mutual agreement. I think there's other organizations within the building. You probably could work out some kind of a mutual agreement that rather than just having a cost all the time for the building. Okay, we need volunteers dedicated so many hours and stuff to help make it, or
Oh, yeah,
and you look after the snow plowing first for the winter, because they maybe have somebody in their organization, snow plowing would do that, and we could use your building. So.
and that is something that we kind of, what we introduced this year with, other agricultural societies, not societies, but, organizations that are focused on agriculture. We now, offer them, at a donation to use our facilities to help facilitate more agricultural growth within the area of these and rural communities. So that way, instead of having the kitchen table meetings, you now have a place, a central location to go to and talk and use it. Now the only thing that I'm not going to like make a negative comment. I'm just saying that when it comes to using the facilities, we have a big community center essentially, but we rent it out to weddings and oftentimes it's in use, which is why it's hard to make promises to people and organizations. Now, if we had a small meeting room, that we could do that maybe outside of the building or on like in another location on the far out there, that could be something that we definitely bring in. I'm very much of the same mind. That's why we started with the agricultural society, organizations to be using our facilities this year, and just seeing what it would look like if they could do it a small donation, because the start of that room building still costs a lot of money to get it going, and it comes out of our pocket at the end of it. We don't have that much money to do that, so that's why it's a small donation, whatever they can do, and we would like to create that kind of relationship. So we can see how it goes, and then obviously bring them in the future.
We're also working with the Audience Club for a permanent pad break in the other building house there on Ryan Street. The reason we never have given the building out for free is because if we start giving the building out for free, we have to give it to everybody for free. It's the biggest problem. It'd be great just to say that your group can win because you're not going to make a mess and you're not going to do this. We don't have to hire a lady to clean the bathrooms, we don't have to hire a lady to clean the floors and set up all the tables, take down all the tables, set up all the chairs. But then your group gets bigger, we have to hire someone to clean floors, we have to hire someone to do this, we have to hire someone to do that. Because as volunteers, we can't go in there during the week and start cleaning everything else. That was always the thought behind that. If you guys from the Masonic all want to come in and talk to us and figure something different, that would be great. Why not just say this goes on? Yeah, it's just your that's a lot different. I know, years ago, the fair board started exchanging with other fairs for volunteers for this camp and stuff that started working, and I know that fairly well. We just changed the bartender for bartenders now, we're bringing so not doing all the tents and stuff or stuff that gets back and it started to whirl and sending back from the grip to broken. So that's another reason we got rid of the tent. It was $30,000 a year, right? That's a good tent. And it is all set up with building permits, engineering, everything else. So it's just one more.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing is that my wife, and we're judges, of course, in the school there. So, we've seen a marked drop over the last few years in the engagement of our schools. And I think that's something that really needs to be a volunteer or somebody in your organization to go to these public schools and really express to try to get the involvement.
We actually do have somebody who does that now. She has, she goes right to the school, she collects the art, she brings it to the fairgrounds. We have a specific category that's just meant for schools. And we've got it on our website now, we send them notifications ahead of time. And I'm, you know, we can always do more. I will say there is a lack of interest from our local schools to participate. And then on that Friday, it was fair, we pay for the schools to come to our fair, we cover the buses and we bring them into our fairgrounds. And with hopes that those students will get to see their artwork in our digitally while learning something about agriculture. But we do have a dedicated volunteer whose focus is just that. And even this year, something new that we're doing is the craft meetings at the fairgrounds to help encourage more entries in our digitally for school kids. Actually, it's geared towards the school kids. So hopefully, our first craft night was a success. We had 20 new exhibitors. People who've never gone to put anything in our fair. It was a success in a small way.
I don't know really how you do it. My wife questioned it at the time, how you do it, because it's, I don't think it's the selling the kids to do the art. The kids we all know kids from kindergarten to these grades, they love to see the art.
Yeah.
I think the sales pitch is you got to sell it to a teacher. That you want the teacher to bring it. I know what job is I could give, but I won't give them because I won't teach them names or stuff. But they just grab 2 or 3 of the art and say, here, we're going to send that where there's been 12 kids do art. They just say, well, we're just sending them through. And well, it's not, I don't know, I seem to think that it's making work for the fair because we're going to send this whole box of art. We're just going to send 70. I think that's, I don't know how you do it. She didn't know really, but you really got to tell the teachers that this is we're making education for the school to be involved in doing this art and stuff, and maybe going to the garden and picking a few flowers and taking it. I think that's where I don't know how you get around it, but I don't know how you get some volunteers to get to it. Maybe you get some retired principals or something that are going home in the school to go in and try to meet with the principals and teachers and try to sell it to them that this is an important part of the education. Just to be involved in the local fair, they start the volunteers and all through.
Thanks, Jim. You had one more?
And just one quick one, yes, if you don't mind. I just sit down, we have our facility manager here. Mr. Spencer, what do we do? Do we do anything for the fairgrounds now?
Through the American get that in yes. Currently, the fair uses utilize the arena for the 4 days. As Nicole indicated, they're not having their large. So last year was the first time that we'd actually had bands in the arena. It went well. I met with the fair board 2 months ago, maybe 2.5 months ago, and they went over a wish list of things that they were looking for. And I agreed in principle to add some extra manpower on the Friday and the Saturday to help not just pick up the garbage in the arena during events, but also to work on the grounds, to go around to help other volunteers with garbage cleanup. And then also on Monday, I arranged we will have all of our department, public works, and the rec staff on hand to help do a full cleanup of the fairgrounds after everything is done.
Oh, that's good.
Which is the process that we have to volunteer. So I already agreed with the fair board to do that. As far as the grass cutting, we already cut grass back. We're cutting those 3 hours a week, which is stuff that we typically used to maybe do an hour and a half, but now we kind of spread it a little bit farther. That's not part of our contract that we have for Spencerville, but it's our staff that maintains the current grass that is being cut up and around the fairground right now, so we currently do that right now. It's in place.
Do we charge them for the arena?
No, we don't. It's a long-standing agreement that the municipality has with the fair board that for their events, they get the arena free charge.
Thank
So
you.
the only cost is our staff overtime, work weekend shifts. Because our front of the building, off the side of the building, keeping the snow away. I especially don't think that's a big thing at our to keep the snow away from the building. So that will cause that the water inside the rink, so. And it's really why. I would appreciate it.
I just have a couple of comments and first, I spoke ahead of the meeting with you, Mr. Connell, and just indicated that it's going to be difficult for River Root for this year, for sure. I mean, that requires, Brockville, Prescott, Augusta, and us all to, agree to modify routes and make changes to things, and that's a difficult task in such a short period of time. I think I know that we're certainly supportive. This group is strongly supportive of the Spencerville Fair. I know this group is strongly supportive of the River Route. And I know that we've had discussions before about the potentiality of supporting special events. One of the issues right now is that the River Route doesn't run on weekends. It originally was created for employment opportunities. It seems to be used more on a day-to-day basis by residents, and it seems that there's maybe a tourism element to it that needs to be explored further. Is that going to happen for Spencerville Fair this year? I mean, realistically, probably not, but I think for the things I will say is that one of the other things that I will say is that we do have community grants and donations. As Mr. Spencer, I wasn't aware that we already did some in-kind work, but certainly if you have something in preparation or in plan for next year, when community grants and donations come out, I know there was a defibrillator request this year that we partially funded. This group makes those decisions based on, wanting to support community events. We're strong into supporting community events, not just capital, but actually events in the tourism component as well. So my suggestion would be to make sure that you have, a plan to move not just defibrillators forward, but something to support the fairs as well, both in kind and from a financial perspective. I think all of the rest of the things on my list were covered by other questions. But I think what we need as a group is a little bit more, probably some information or possibly to have a discussion and then ask staff for some information on how we could actually partner with you and maybe at a further date have a bigger discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Right. Okay, thank you, Mr. Conlon. I appreciate the time and the effort. Lines obviously pretty loose with them, right? So fire away, Jackson, we're looking forward.
Laptop issue.
Oh, laptop. Interesting.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Councilors, thanks for having me and as well. I'm from Cabin, we're into a prefabricated home company. So I just want to tell you a little bit about some community development we do, a little bit of detail on where the technology comes from, but how it's applied, larger scale, service, rapid, affordable housing. So giving access points for people to either have a first time home, downsize into a more reasonable community type style basis or live sustainably. So Cabin is an intentional tool for net zero housing for everyone. We underwent a development and design process using prefabricated components and arranged them in a design that uses about 20% of the energy of a traditional home. So the building design cabin actually lowers the utility bill, and then all cabin units come with full scale solar infrastructure on the roofs. So they're not a draw from the grid, or anything but so it brings infrastructure with it, as well as kind of the housing aspect of it. I want to show you here, this is actually our home in Mallorytown, so it's not too far from here. This project was partially funded by the Federation of Municipalities for the Sustainable Affordable Housing Fund. So it was of the impetus to create a sustainable housing strategy that also was affordable. This is the interior shot of the building, so I like to highlight a few things about the building. So you can see sort of on the border, you see the timber farm. So that's cross-laminated timber. It is sustainably harvested in Ontario, CNPC certified. This building came 750 square feet. It's 2-bedroom. But this one actually 1 bedroom and an office, but it'd be 2-bedroom. It came in 17 pieces that were insulated, strapped, cladded partially, and then with windows. And was put together on Tuesday at noon in January 10th. It arrived on January 12th by the evening, the building's up. So it allows fast, efficient assembly. It also allows accurate assembly. So this building was off interdimensionally less than $500,000. So what that allows you is a high quality, long lasting building that also is easy to maintain. And you know where everything is. So when you're doing any maintenance repair or looking at where the electrical pathways are, anything along those lines, everything standardized. So it's easily and long to hold on to. In the buildings themselves, they come with all of those technologies. So since we design intentionally towards reducing the energy requirements of the home, it comes with things like energy recovery ventilator, actually with a partner with Canon. Their heat pump system, which are the top of the line. So with the technology we put in the buildings, the key is to add the top 5% of technologies, because in the long term, it will reduce your cost for running a building, reduce the maintenance cost, and also have the strongest warranties and maintenance of the unit. So for example, a heat pump, which is heating and cooling of the unit, is a Mitsubishi raised minus 30 degrees centigrade, which usually would be exclusively used for some high-end passive house, $1 million mansion or whatever in Ottawa, but because of this efficient system, it makes it very available. Cabin units as well. We focus on the energy profile of the buildings. We have 4 units from a 540 square foot 1 bedroom, 1 bath, all the way to 1850 square feet, 4-bedroom, 3-bath with an office. But we endeavor with our partners like B+H Architecture, we're part of the spin-off of Queens through our energy innovation, various different stakeholders to look at local needs in the community. So not just putting a massive tower in the middle of a place that doesn't make sense, but about ingratiating or planning within the community, how these buildings interact. So what we endeavor is to create not just housing, but within that shared housing center community, and to be participants in the community at large as well. One of the things that puts us apart from some other sort of home builders and things like that is that because we spent 3 years in development in partnership with these various universities, as well as the builders, developers, and actually the GMF funding stream. We have been approved and checked marked and box checked for a lot of grants, grant subsidies, support essentially. All of our buildings are net zero, which means they generate more power than they consume annually. In fact, our buildings with full roof solar arrays, like our one in Mallorystown, generate 213% of the energy it consumes. What that allows you to do is not only just be just sufficient in terms of energy, but actually to power other commercial buildings, to power EV chargers, to power vehicles. It's not an infrastructure stuff, I guess you could say. You bring the infrastructure with it, but also by having this third-party vetted building strategy, we're eligible for additional support like the Green Municipal Fund Sustainable Florida Housing Capital Projects stream, which is up to $10 million in a loan grant mix, because you build net zero housing that is affordable. We're also eligible for quite a few other programs because of the sustainability of rapid construction. So on an individual basis, for example, we have a customer down in Spain, and he's doing 1 unit and then an additional 15. But we have a less than 12-month delivery schedule and full assembly. So because of that metric, we are highly eligible for a program called the Rapid Housing Initiative. That is an allowance of 4,500 homes, or 4,500 projects, I should say, for rapid affordable housing or attainable housing. Their mandate says they want to be done a project in about 18 months, but by being able to fit into that 12-month cycle, you're highly eligible. We work closely with them. I did mention the Green Municipal Fund, but part of that as well is focusing on sustainability, a percentage of the buildings being affordable in a larger community, and then also just creating a larger supply of housing. There are as well, maybe first quite a few CMHC support structures and preferred rates for rental construction loans, affordable rentals, all of which were specifically aligned with. The key aspect of cabins is the fact that it's a multiple model system. It creates a community, but also creates kind of energy and a positive energy input. So our model actually, when we work with municipalities and small scale developers, we often act as either the builder and the equipment supplier, or just the equipment supplier. Because each unit is optimized for solar energy generation, you can arrange in a cluster of either 5 to 8 units with a common central sort of garden amenity or a sort of picnic area, but each unit is oriented roughly to the south. Now, since we've done data analysis in every place in all of Canada, we can tell you accurately if you needed to face the buildings on 15 degrees off south, 45 degrees off south, we give you an accurate energy generation score for the solar, as well as a consumption score. So it's not cookie cutter, they all have to be perfectly aligned. The sun, they all can be angled in various arrangements to have privacy, to create community, to create differentiation, but still understand how much energy you're generating. This holistic system, the cluster, can actually in a system of like less than 5 units, can use a shared well strategy or waste water strategy, or larger strategies in, for example, like 67 units or 8 units. We look at larger waste water strategies for the entire community. These clusters and these developments work in sort of in one sense, they can work in a common business model where you own your home, you own your property, but you pay into managing some of the national park systems, the pathways, and energy. But there's a very different other ways it can be done. I kind of touched on this, but this kind of pulls us back to our process. It's a little bit boring, but essentially the most straightforward sense. Our goal is to close the loop on housing. So our raw material sourcing is Canadian. We look at FSC certification, which is Forest Stewardship Council, which means essentially, the plant the trees are replanted. By controlling our raw materials and having them from Canada, having them from Ontario, you have them from down the doorstep. We're working with Ontario Forestry, working with OWA, the Mass Timber Institute to utilize red pine. Places like for example, like the forest or on our doorstep. We lower the cost of housing because that timber, which is like a true Canadian home, actually is local to us. We manufacture and plastic components like that, as to the nth degree as possible in a controlled environment all year round. We actually utilize the Johnstown port for some shipping. We are shipping out of the area as well through that port, our whole panelized systems. So utilize that, but it kind of, it all comes together sort of prefabricated components, and then we provide other technologies as well. I kind of touched on the transportation, the assembly, again, 2 days for the smallest unit or 5 days for the largest. Allows you to reduce the cost of labor, but also more importantly, because of the labeling and assembly process, it allows access for, and I absolutely detest this term, but I don't really know what to say, but the unskilled labor is an access point for lower skilled labor to participate in home building. And as a result of that, we also are working with the Employment Education Center of Rockville, creating programs for local residents, people in United Counties, and Rebel to learn how to assemble the buildings, how to finish the buildings, can be like teams of builders that can rapidly build housing as neighbors and locally. Finally, again, the long-term benefits of the buildings are you have a fixed negligible energy cost. Depending on how you structure it, you basically eliminate that energy bill that you would have at the end of every month, and whether you're on propane. I know nothing happens right now, and my bill's $1,000 a month sometimes for propane. So it's eliminating some of these things reduces the cost that people have to deal with. It also, by building them in a structured way that CLT these components, they originally were designed to replace structural human concrete. So the longevity, the quality, and the lower maintenance is massive in terms of the user experience, and people living in the buildings, and a sense of community. I was going to show you a little bit of the units. We have 5 buildings that we fabricate, from the 1 bedroom to the 4 bedroom, but we also have by demand from affordable housing providers and nonprofits, as well as RHI, the organization, the multi-residential unit. So whether it's like the 2 bedroom, 1 or 2 bath, or the multi-residential unit, full turnkey. You're the multi-res about 5 units in a townhouse format, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath in each. Completed on property, we're looking at less than $300,000 for a homeowner to purchase. So you can get into a home, you get into a high quality home, a home that doesn't have an energy, like a power bill, for a reasonable rate. And those costs and those costs are only decreasing. Because we control, we're working on even further reducing the cost. So with the various units, there's a lot of different access points for people to kind of gain the first house, or downside, or just increase capacity. We're working on sort of a planning project. It's the north of Toronto, where it's primarily for nurses, service workers, people that are in that kind of intermediary zone, and having this community around quality housing is very important to us. This again, kind of going in reverse order, but giving you some examples of what we provide. This is what allows us to actually make these energy buildings, but make sure that it all integrates together. So the HVAC system, the water tank, solar systems, all the insulation, the windows and doors, all included. So there's no opportunity for anything to drop the ball or for like to be short to be made, because it's important for that energy profile. There you go. So there's really what the one way is, we've got offered the input from anybody and everybody online or not to come take a look at some of the show home, see sort of the expansiveness of it, the quality of the building, but also understanding that it's attainable and it's housing for everybody to be able to live in, healthily and happily, but you don't have to sort of, you don't have to deal with energy bill anymore and stuff. So I forgot. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackson, that, it's so fantastic. The effort taken, so the presentation's awesome. I'm gonna open the floor up to the group if you have questions or comments, so we'll just come across here.
Just, it was a lot of information. There was a lot of information. I just, when you were talking about the cluster, did you say you own the land and the house, and then there's like a maintenance?
So
For lack of a better word, like a condo.
there's some interesting regulations in terms of like the utility. If we were in say Alberta or Vermont, the buildings and you could act your own utility and some neighbors, that kind of thing. So the way the cluster works best, but it's not prescriptive, it can be changed, it can be literally any sort of strategy, but what we've seen as a good foot forward is that it's a mini condo business model. So of which you own your land, you own your building, you own all the contents and all the technologies. But because there's a shared energy storage strategy amongst units, and probably a shared either wastewater strategy, in that you would have sort of maintenance or long-term maintenance fees on multiple clusters. You're working on and I can share this council and get mayor and mayor down. You're looking at more structural things. So then you're looking at snow power removal, snow removal, money, snow removal, you're looking at the water management, being incorporated part of our building, our development investigation, something called a biomimetic plan, but basically you take a property, if it's 30 acres, and we look at what the most environmental approach would be. So looking at non-prime farmland, not highly forested land, obviously not wetlands, intensifying that wet area and preserving the remainder of the property for natural parks and walkways. Again, part of that would be like small, like sort of bottom history of the people that they got because of the residents day into. Perfect. Thank you.
Councilor?
I think I'm gonna pass at this point. Thank you. Let's start. It could be like another question.
I just have a couple of Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, net zero housing. What is net zero housing?
Net zero housing is a term that almost generate renewable energy more than you consume over the year. What's continuous is that, for example, that's why our net zero houses, even our basic models, generate 138% for this area. It's in Yukon, we got 1.2. So we've got all the analysis, and then our off-grid models, which are the full roof solar array systems, are all about 200%. But net zero means basically when I did my tally at the end of the year, this is how much energy I use, and I made that just over that generating renewables.
One more. It's the National Housing Strategy granted I guess minimum for projects $1 million. The application deadline is March 15, 2023. Is that extended or?
Yeah, so they did sort of rolling that some of the key factors that we were working with them on highlighting. We want to see this is for affordable housing, not necessarily just down housing supply. This is for, based off of the average income, 42,000 per year in Edinburgh, Carlisle. 30% of your income now rate. What they want is provider, a participant. They also want to see the ability to build rapidly. So Cabot steps in, we can build within 12 months, they say 18 months, 12 months is always better. So that's box checked. And then we want to see a municipality that is support. And part of the reason they want to see that is just in case there is a project. So we're looking at 20 years, not 5 years. So what happens in year 19, when they decide on that, then you get sent the whole project paid for. So if you were listening to a multi-unit, 5-unit, they would pay all the services, the installation, and you would send for driving around housing initiative.
Thank you. Well done, thank you.
Yeah, I think you just lost me for it, so you can get build these for free, did I understand that correctly?
It's actually not never free,
No.
but the strategy is that they would fund the whole project as well as they'll fund the assembly, they'll fund the services, fund the building itself. And then they want to see they also want to see in-kind work, let's say, like have the foundation. So in-kind work in terms of like feasibility studies, analyses, they want to see hopefully participation from municipality, waiving fees in terms of permitting. They want to see that support. From the physical and structural standpoint, yes, this is provided through that system, rapid housing initiative, like the building itself. But yeah, again, they want to see they want to see those softer costs represented in the whole project, and it's either through capital foundation, the equipment style. So let's say that's a discounted cost of a unit, but I'd say 20%. That's the value to the rapid housing initiative, which is something we definitely will do. As well as the little services that we can provide, and they have a dollar amount associated with it.
So I mean, I guess that's kind of where I was originally going before I heard about the free homes.
Yeah.
So I mean, what's the experience look like? So I mean, I'm assuming sometimes a big developer comes and says, I want to build a cluster. I don't know if that's how it happens or not, I want a cluster get built, I guess.
So I use an example, basically about one way we have a lot of individuals, a lot of United counties that have land for building secondary suites. So they're a great addition as a secondary suite to increase capacity. So you have your kids moving home, or you definitely want to move and sell your other property, what have you. From a developer or small scale developer standpoint, they will have property. And maybe it's 230 lots, but they'll want to allocate 15 lots towards an NCO development because it fits within the marketing, their clientele, people want to move in the community. We can either act as in the first round, we have an equipment supplier. So we provide the components, all the technologies, all the pieces to the units. That developer, because they are local, assembles the buildings, finishes them, and sells them at their cost, or rents them and whatever their financial strategy happens to be. On the other route is it happens steps in and does the whole aspect. So we'll do site setup, we'll do all the steel frame foundation, we'll do the assembly, and then we'll finish turnkey. And Cabin does that more. Most of those things are planned for like in Ontario. Where we have not done it is in places that are more far along, like in Europe, from the coast. So we have a local building that does this happen. The nice thing about that is, depending on your location, the municipality, or what the story is, if you have 15 of the 4 bedrooms going up, cumulatively they could create 30 net zero homes. Because they're supporting other homes, other buildings, other outbuildings or ARUs. So it kind of creates a larger network effect in the community. Another aspect is the cluster is usually the decision point of how many units is what fits in the community, what fits within development, also what fits within the wastewater strategy and the constraint. So if you're looking at a singular well or space septic system that works out, or to incorporate to a larger one, doesn't even maybe go on the side cluster.
So. I think you pretty much answered it. So you guys will sometimes do your own development, you'll pick the property and develop it that way as well, did I get that, or is it?
So far, we basically partnered with the landowner developer, so like, for as an example. We're entering in and they are doing sort of the infrastructure, so simple roads, establishing that network, and then we're moving the buildings in. Transitioning into the condo business model and then setting up so it's long-term management of the property. And then incorporating our sort of like environmentalism as well as sort of affordability. And in addition to that, we partner with other styles of housing. So I would be remiss, there's no singular sort of affordable housing community, there's no singular high-end community, they're heterogeneous. So we take in local like rental providers or as well as sort of like look at our aspirational model, we mix them all together and then you have like a wholesome community. Wholesome is always up in debate. You have a community that's all style of people and there's no other. So it's attainable and then there's some affordable ones to get in.
Just one last question. Sure. It's the usual question that you haven't answered, that's fine, but you know, I guess the first thing that comes to mind that whenever we have a delegation is how can we help? How can we help to get the word out and do whatever we can do to make something like this come to reality?
For cabins, I think the true impact to be made in terms of like rapidly addressing housing, if you can like. There's always increasing supply always helps lowering price points. Like our goal is to have a lower cost for Canadians and people in the community to get into houses. And in that cluster, in that development model is really where the costs marry the sustainability. Part of the Green Municipal Fund Sustainable Affordable Housing Program is a recognition that sustainability doesn't really align a lot of time with affordability. But with our development model, the way they work in concert together, that truly does make stable living affordable. So working with you with the and for Cardinal to align with other developers, align with projects, or look at projects where we can incorporate the cluster or the multi-unit model, because I think it really fits in the attainability price point. And it's really with technology and how we're going to demonstrate the most well.
Yeah. Thank you. You can have your meeting back.
No, it's fine. I'm enjoying this. Councilor Smith.
Yeah, Your Worship, I have a few things I'd like to ask, if it's okay.
Yep.
First of all, you did a very great presentation, and I'm very impressed. First time I've seen any action being taken for low income housing. First question on it was use assemblies. Where do you do this? Like, do you have a?
So we have partner facility right now in Quebec. We actually warehouse a crossdock in Rockville. So we set down routes in the United Counties. And then that's why St. John's Town Board is a critical access point for a lot. And when we're shipping stuff out, that's what we're going through, or we're just shipping directly across the border, which is so we do a processing in partnership with the Employment Education Center there in Rockville. But the nice thing is, so that's why I'm giving the same reason too, we began sort of these discussions, utilizing larger forces in the United County. Having all the resources within about 20 kilometers of the acre. So it's really localized. So the builders are here, the components are here, and then the technology comes through. There are some technology we bring in, so like the windows and doors, we can get a standard. Unfortunately, I have to change that in Canada, so we had to be bringing in from Germany. A lot of the heat pump systems and technology coming from overseas. The solar is actually from Canada, being manufactured, models warranty available. Usually reserved for a specialty project, we're using our buildings, but again, that's all warehouse in Rockville, and then those components and processing.
So do you have a warehouse show you mentioned earlier, you can go through one of these houses?
So yeah, 10 Mills Road, in Town, I hope you know. So it's just what's going on the internet, but yeah, stop by anytime or book an appointment and reach out to me directly, but I like to talk another 5 hours about design and real logos and how oriented, now again, we get it, how rated, how people come together, it's the whole, if you're in for an hour, like we're about for an hour, but that's just down in Town. The nice thing about that is when our initial analysis with my partner, the engineer, and everything, we used this area, like my home, as the upset. So our first data set, the first analysis, the first assembly, all from around here. We then extrapolated and did them all over Canada, but it started here. So yeah, come down, the show must stay in Town, it's one of our small units. But yeah, then the facilities would be more like.
So my final question for you is, what's the cheapest house you build? And what's the most expensive? And if, I'm looking at these pictures, you've got pretty expensive, actually have the most expensive railings that can be put on anybody's home.
Yeah, there's definitely, I think that's where we go, our goal is never to make one building look different than the other. All the technology and all the materials remain the same. But like cladding and flourishes, the railings and things can be altered. So that's where the mechanical foundation. So I set up a foundation expressly to take the technology of cabin and then connect it with communities or remote communities or different nonprofits to say, hey, we've got this technology, how can we adapt it culturally or regionally to your area? So the kind of circling back again, it's like up north, like a super expensive railing system is not absolutely probably preferable, only because it's just like maintenance and like you guys should glass up at the breaks, that kind of thing. So we work in that regard of just looking at where we can make it more cost effective or make it more lower maintenance or maybe like tweak the design to make it more suited for an area. So yeah, there's a lot of we mix a lot of 4 units. Our lowest cost is around 219,000, and our highest is around 500,000. Comes with all the solar systems, comes with everything. As part of the mission of the foundation, we also look at essentially agreements for like high cost plus a small raise, basically a little to deal with inflation. For the housing. So like through our foundation, we have preferred rates, and then our multi-res unit with 15 beds and 10 baths. You're looking at like around 1.7 million, but that's turnkey waterway. So you have this unit, it comes with everything, it looks same technology, same heat pump, same solar system, same energy generating capacity, but it's a pretty efficient cost per foot.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Hammond.
You said your cheapest was 319,000.
219, but that's set up as an individual unit, shipping out to maybe who knows where, and maybe on the split side. That's where a lot of costs come in as well. So you're thinking about where these things happen to be placed. There's a lot of kind of flexibility in cost. But yeah, 219 is the lowest cost.
219?
Yeah, 219.
219.
Yeah.
Is that through the foundation?
I put the steel frame foundation, yeah. So we're built on the steel frame foundation and the actual components put together on that.
So you still have to pay for the foundation to power that.
Yeah, we use helical piles. Again, you don't have to use helical piles, which is it's just it's a larger screw pile, but it allows flexibility. For example, whether you do one unit, it's going to be 2 days to put the piles in. If you do multiple units, it's more efficient. But you put the piles in wherever you want to place the unit.
When you're designing with regard to this house heads, how is your septic and water system included? Are these all designed for being in where there's sewer and water connections, or are they designed for septic system as well?
So for both, what we found is it's really like if you're across the road, you've got like rain on one side, and you've got folks who drink to the well on the other, depending. So we can insert into city systems. But usually case by case, we look at what kind of valve or septic or going from water systems that makes sense. And then more on the larger scale clusters or developments, you look at larger strategies that are more efficient. Cost efficient as well as generally environmentally efficient and waste efficient.
All these buildings are building, they're basically, just stepping on fire. The screw pylon, there's no basement under it, there's no crawl space. That's fully insulated.
Yeah, so we, because it's all these crop formation with these timber panels. They range in between 3.5 to 5 inches thick. The panels is situated like this, and you have an insulation to the exterior. Then you're scrapping into the waterproof air, things like that. And you have the cladding. We also, the floor and the roof system and the walls are all the same system. That ensures sort of air tightness, which is important if you have a big hole for your house and it's used a lot of energy. But then also the floor and roofs installations are 52. The walls are 40. And the average of the buildings is around R36. And the reason for that is just windows have reduced inflation factor. So we do the average is going to R36 and that's the whole building.
So. Design here. Looking at your blueprint there, I don't see if you're in a rural area where you're having a well and septic system. Where's your mechanical room for your pumps and stuff being located?
So there's 2 rooms associated with the system. The majority of the utilities are actually under the stairs, and it's access from usually the bathrooms. The majority of the small water tank, and then various other systems. The HVAC run is in a roof sort of between the first floor and second floor. We run them above the bathrooms, and then the ERV is in the bathroom. Your heat pump the air return is in the column, sort of in the stairs in the bathroom. The other item that you need to store technology in is an exterior item, which is an electrical shed. By code, you need to store batteries external to your home, safety, obviously. So there's an external electrical shed. If you are in a larger community setting, you actually you don't have batteries in your home, you have a shared energy storage strategy. But if you're a singular home, the batteries are external. And if you can be connected into the grid as well, so that's called net metering. So essentially, you don't need a battery at all. It comes with a battery at 10 kilowatt. But you can generate a lot of energy in summer. You work with Hydro One and then metering contracts, and then you get a debit back and get pull it back in the winter when you need it. So the exterior shed of the electrical shed is basically called that storage of those items.
Oh man, we could go on for this all night. This is so.
Me too.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic. So I just want to ask one for, well, maybe 2. I can't resist. All government approvals, you can build them now. They're all CSA, everything's ready to go. We're good.
Yeah, it's all good. They're all approved, standard CSA approval, comes out, it's the only CSA approval to the extent that the votes can. Then what we do is we work closely, you have a closing in the walls, just take a check, just standard kind of home building stuff.
Okay. And if I said I had a lot and I was ready to go today, I had the permits or everything that was required to go today, how long before, I know how long it takes to build it, how long does it take before I'm in?
So we could do all the site services in any time, you know, winter. We're scheduling our spots out for May 2024. Partially too, there's a low restriction on the road up till May 15th if you have those. Again, if you really wanted to, if you were really keen, these things can be put together in winter. So we reserve slots in our production schedule with 10% all the time for those special cases. If somebody really had all their ducks in a row, had a permit set, had their wastewater already established, was access to ready to do it, we could fast track it. But right now we're scheduling them for May.
Yeah, so like if you had a municipal partner that said that there was a, municipal owned lot and wanted to partner with you. Had access to water and sewer, was willing to work with permitting and getting things done, it would be May of next year that.
I would, it depends on the quantity, we could definitely set up on the site, in the fall. And then it would be a strategy, probably early fall, discussing with municipalities saying, what the impetus to have done December versus May. If it's a material difference, then we build into the winter, and we perfectly fine, we've done it before. Otherwise, we'd be like, okay, let's do the big assembly, finishing, like game onwards.
And how, I think, this, you've certainly got a lot of interest. I think we're certainly excited about having you here and doing it. How does one contact you to, I know how to do that, but how does everyone else know how to get in touch with you to come and do a tour of the home?
You can reach out to hello@cabn.co. hello@cabn.co. There is also a booking link on our website. You'll either have to, I live here now, I'm around all the time, you can walk them to me, or be one of our folks that is on the technology like that. The one thing I actually would like to mention too, in terms of kind of project-based stuff, is that Romance, to not mention that, so Van City, Community Development Bank, is very interested in working with municipalities on attainable affordable housing, and financing any program. So aside of the waiting on grants or waiting on a project, BCIB is a partner wanting to step in and help support this type of housing. There are two mandates: are renewable energy and affordable housing. So the gold star is the municipality that's looking to build sustainably and affordably. They want to have a conversation. So
That's good. And I guess lastly, unless I missed you, at United Counties, Steve will sit in for me, and Deputy Mayor will sit in for me. I haven't seen United Counties yet. Seems like it might be a more logical partner than a small municipality like ours, like the group of 13 versus the the power of one. Will you be coming to make a presentation there as well?
yes, okay. Are you asking me or am I?
Well, I'm asking if you have one already set up.
No, we don't have one to set up, although I've had quite a few folks many times in the group, but yeah. I'd love to maybe speak to the whole group as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of money for affordable housing, and they have, a great amount of it there to move towards attainable and affordable housing, a lot of incentive programs, and there's probably some kind of logical partnership there as well.
Yeah, I guess so.
Great, so anything further from anyone here? Everybody knows how to contact Jackson. I just want to say thanks again for coming. Awesome presentation, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
You're more than welcome to stay and hang out for the rest of the meeting if you want. We'll be here till about 10. Thanks again.
Thanks for
That's it. You're not gonna like my next discussion, so. Can I make a note? Is it recording stuff? So far, so good. Awesome. Okay, so the next, thanks guys. The next item would be typically consent agenda. And well, I'm gonna ask that I think all of these reports are actually quite relevant. Tonight even. I don't think that they're long reports. I personally, I'd like to see them all pulled if there's support around the table to have them all pulled, just even for just quick presentation purpose. Everybody okay with that? Nodding heads. Yeah.
You want to miss consent?
No, I want to take them all out of consent so we can do a quick review on before they would have consent. Okay. I think that it's quarterly for bylaw and building. They're not long reports. They're more into the staff report than the meetings report, but I think it's worthwhile. Okay. So then do I just move on then past discussion and then just go to 8A and just keep going through the list? Okay, so then 8A and who will be speaking, or the CBO that'll speak to the building report?
That's correct.
Yes. Dwayne, you can bring your report forward.
Mr. Mayor, the building report for the second quarter was much better than the first one for this year. We've actually had 51 building permits issued over last quarter, and 9 of those were actually single residential units. With an agricultural building and a commercial renovation. That represents the new residential construction represents $5,773,862,000. Total construction value for the second quarter is $8,778,000. When we compare that to last year, we actually have an increase in construction value of 1.2 million. And that's basically primarily due to increase in construction cost and the number of new housing. But I think that it doesn't show on this report, but last year we this time we had I think nine new houses. This year we had 7 new houses, but we have a $2 million house that kind of makes sense. And that's basically the report.
Good, thank you. One of the reasons I asked for it to be pulled is because I think there's a lot of good news in that report from, our concerns where we were, looking like we were a good distance behind. This one shows that we've certainly caught up a long way towards what the goals are. And if things shape up in quarter 3, quarter 4, even slightly will be equal to or ahead of what last year was. So
That's the hope, and actually, I work on 3 residents now for upcoming, so it's a better.
yeah, we're getting there. Good job. That was all that I just wanted to pull it out because I thought it was a good news story, and I think we always talk and we always talk the negative and discuss the negative a lot around here, and I think when there's a good story, I think it's good to make sure that people understand that we are getting back on track and the numbers are trending in the right direction. So I'm just going to ask for a show of hands. Does anybody have any questions for this report before we move on to the next? Seeing none, good. Thank you for that one. Then we can move on to 8B, which is the second quarter bylaw report. So when I assume, who is that going to? You? Okay. Sorry, clerk. You. My apologies.
The bylaw officers wanted to just recall overall second quarter. With the majority of them being clean yards, I hear that we prioritize those to get overall the first request that work orders for 82 site visits along with a couple of notice of providers orders to comply. There are a couple of outstanding files, 14 in total, but 5 of those are open report. Various stages, we don't have a lot of information, so the only it is. Couple that are coming for us over the next 6 months or so. And the majority of those again.
Thank you for the report. I will say again, I think a little tiny piece of good news is at the United Counties, we were told the POA is back at capacity again. It's running, it's only been able to get about 29% through that, for 6 months, but moving forward, it should be running as well as it would. And I would anticipate that, meaning that any of these will get dealt with a little bit quicker than what they have been over the last couple of years. And I think that's partially the good news. I have one question with this report, and I'm not sure that you're going to be able to answer it, but the 2023 graph on the graph page, which on my package is 21,150, shows, so the rest of the graph, are those yearly totals versus to date total for this year?
Through the chair, that's correct. It's yearly. Unfortunately, with the dashboard, the work order totals, it shows to date that I pull it. I can't represents that section of it by quarter. So at the end of each quarter, it just keeps accumulating moving forward. So if you see 2020, 2021, 22, and prior to that, that's the overall payment for that year.
Full year.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're comparing full year to 5 months or six months, right? Okay, just so everybody's clear and aware of that. Okay, good. Thank you for the report. I will just go show of hands again. Does anyone have any questions in terms of this report? All right, hearing none. Second quarter treasury report, and I assume that that's Mr. Nicholson. Fire Director.
So with this report, there's four key components to this report. The financial report is June 30th. Long-term debt schedule is June 30th. Our capital status report as of June 30th, and also our issues, if you want to say our reserve and the fund report as of June 30th, 2023. I'll go through each report individually, and then I'll answer any questions after each report. You might as well just leave it that way, since there's 4 reports to go through. So with the financial report, one thing to note, year over year, we are a little bit shorter on cash, an increase of 330,000, mainly just due to increased capital spend this time versus last year this time. And then that ties in with our accounts payable as far as capital invoices starting to be broke up. We're starting to see the stuff come in for kind of 2 and the finishing up for those. The other amounts in there as far as the equity items, we adjust those after the financial statements, so that just has the new numbers that was in our financial statements that was presented last couple months ago. And then in the long-term debt, I do have the construction loan amount in there. Just because it's still sitting there as a temporary loan. So I've included it on the long-term debt, but we'll discuss that later in when we get to the debenture portion. You're gonna be hearing a lot from me today. Does anybody have any questions on this report before we move to the next?
Anyone?
No, you answered it with the construction logo. That was just gonna ask that.
Right, I'll move on to the next one.
Good.
So our updated schedule of long-term debt. No real changes on anything. We do have number 7 on the list here, which has fallen off as far as DRDR grade. The key thing to know from this report is we'll have 3 items expired in 2024, which if you look at the annual payments for numbers 2, 5, and 6, I think that's about $130,000 a year, which is a good thing. Any questions on this one?
Anyone? No, I think you highlighted the one thing that I wanted to comment on, and that's October 24, June 24, and March 24. Those 3 combined free up $128,292, which is equivalent to pretty darn close to 2% in tax levy rate. So yeah, it's pretty close. So, worthwhile noting. Good. No questions, and we'll continue on.
I'm going to capital. Just going right to the bottom of 9.337 million in capital, we spent about 1.22 million of it. Well, obviously this is going to move in 25, 25, 25, 25. Now is when we're doing a lot of our big work as far as Carnival 2, which represents about 60% of our annual budget. So I'll go back up to the top and go through everything kind of department by department. So with the administration, just incurring little dribs and drabs of charges on the designs for the renovation. Everything is still going forward. With the public works, with the tender for the P5 Canada, I just need to get with the board to see if we made that purchase order. And so when would we get delivery, whether it would be 23 or 24. If it is in 24, this amount will be right for the 2024 to cover that cost. Other than that, the only thing that's really been spent is a little bit on the Ventnor Bridge to get started on that work. Storm management, Newport drainage, that tender was awarded to Globes Construction Limited. It came in under the 300,000, so I think it was about 211,000 that tender came in at. With the drainage projects, Johnstown drainage is substantially complete, but still going through the defects and remediation. Would that be correct? Okay, getting a nod from Director of Operations. That will also tie into our drainage discussion for the ventures as well later on in the evening. So for recreation, good progress made on that budget. I've highlighted June 8th as far as that's when we paid for all the meters were paid for, but I believe we're still waiting to look up for gas for the Cardinal pools. So while it's complete, it's probably 99% complete once the cost of getting the gas hookup is in there. And again, it's tracking right on budget, which is great. Truck replacement came in under, which is awesome. Lawn tractor, very much on budget. A little bit over, same with the dog repair, keeping a little bit over, but nothing really material. With the Johnstown tennis courts, paving is complete and waiting for the fencing to be installed. So we paid for the paving, but nothing else yet. With a lot of the wastewater and industrial, a lot of that stuff has been complete. It's just as the invoices coming from payment, then on the item you want to split. As far as the raw water system, that's 216,000. The work is done. It was completed in May, but we're waiting our invoice from Greenfield as to what our share of that is. And that is also the reserve item anyway. So whatever was paid will come from the reserve for that for our budget. As far as County Road 2, the 115,000 is just from preliminary invoices that we've seen. We haven't seen any of the big program payments yet. I'm sure they will be coming, and I'll work with our Director of Operations on that as we make those payments. If it falls to the county, as per our agreement, we'll remit to them. And if it crosses the threshold for our provincial and federal grants, then we will get access to those funds through T1 and the progress for that. So from now till the end of the year, it is very much from the Treasury Department's is their cash, just ensuring that we have enough cash to cover everything as it comes through. Any questions on that?
Just sorry, Newport drainage, is that the number 2 duly chair to the CEO? The one east that we did the one west last year. And now we're going east, right?
Through the mayor, yeah, that is the first phase of the portion, which will be from Killen to.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sure. Through the chair, so Johnstown drainage, 248 versus 467. There's extra billing coming, or did we just do that good? Oh, okay.
No, extra the next time. So
I got one. I have this exact same question, by the way, for the tennis courts.
They're not
So-
final.
yeah.
They're not final, I get that, so. Invoice can be, yeah, it's invoices today, yeah, no, I got that, so.
So,
But the paving's never done, yeah.
right. So as a note, sort of going forward, when you see dates in the completion date, and you're over or under, then book away with the budgets. So the date inside the project still on.
Maybe I still have a question.
That is not fine.
I know myself better than that. Oh, you said it? Yep.
Is there anyone else on questions in regard to this report?
I just want to know why it's taken for the Cardinal Cooler so long to get the gas.
Through to Mr. Spencer.
Good chair to Mr. Smell, it's just a lot of paperwork and every issue.
Tell them the good news.
So up today.
Summer.
So the good thing is the rules to the degree that it's been 1 or 2, but no, it's been under, we've been working on it for 2 months now. And that's why we went with propane here, even though there's natural gas at this facility. It was going to get hard to play structure, so that's why.
Fair enough, like.
Great, nothing further, on to the next.
So next is the reserve report. So on the top part of the report, no change. Those numbers are always in our RGL. They're not, they're just assets on our books. They're not interest drawing accounts. And the bottom part is our investments. We'll start with the GIC we have, and then also the consolidated reserve bank account or ROC, which does draw interest. So for the transfers in so far, what you see for the 2009-50, that's our first quarter RSL promissory note payment. The 128.30 for the dedicated capital reserve fund from the port. That is 2 quarters of the when we up the payment to $1 million, then there's a portion that gets transferred to capital, so that's that portion there. And then the year-to-date interest is year-to-date interest on the GIC, so we'll have 1 more month of interest, so that balance at the end, that maturity will be $2,614,000 even. And then the rest of the bank interest that we got, so you can see half the year, 140,000 interest just on the reserve funds. So this doesn't include the interest that we're getting on the cash we have in our operating account. So very good year for interest for the township. And then what you also see is for the Ontario Modernization Fund, that transfer out of 30,000, that was for contribution.
Thank you. Questions for the reserve funds?
So, yeah, I guess I have a question to the chair. So we do not get interest on the earmarked reserves, is that a legal issue or is that just?
It's not sitting in cash, it's sitting as an asset on our balance sheet.
Okay.
So it was cash at one point, and then think of that earmarked reserve as what comes from accumulated surplus. Okay. So the accumulated surplus of it sits in our bank account, it sits on our balance sheet, so that's why it's there.
We as several of the county's councilors struggled with this number at county's council when everybody saw it, and it was like, well, we've got that much and it's earning no interest, and then it's a difficult discussion for the accountant to make county's councilors understand that it's not physical cash, it's not liquid money, right? It's it's difficult.
That is equity in the house.
Yeah.
So you can vote against it. But it's not.
Okay, questions? Hearing none, okay, last.
Next report is, second quarter budget to use variance. So attached to the summary of revenue and expenses for the period ending June 30th, 2023. We're compared to the second quarter of last year. For this budget, for this period, anticipated that expected should be at approximately 50% of the budget. Remaining. As I had mentioned in the last quarter of the report, some of these expenditures will follow the 112 monthly cycle, such as municipal insurance and the those things. So the report shows that there's a 57.1% of the budget remaining overall departmental operating expenses, which is good. You want that number above 50. All budgeted transfers to and from reserve have not been reported and won't be recorded until the capital is deployed. Because some of those reserve transfers tied to certain projects, I won't transfer from the reserves until the project is ongoing or those funds are needed for that. Minimal capital costs incurred to date on the large capital projects. Timing for completion is in Q4, and as of last update, all major projects are on schedule. Some variances of note in the revenues are as follows. Year to date, fire department permit revenues are almost at the 2023 budget estimate of 11,000. So I see we're still continuing to get burn permits on a weekly basis. So we are expecting to exceed budget on that. As in the building report, it was lower permit received, but higher activity. And again, with both the Spencer Arena and Canteen, revenues are just increased usage. So when you look at the comparison between Q2 this year and Q2 last year. The taxation note is the same as last year. We'll be getting ready to send out the final tax bills located in August. On the operating expense side, we want to give kudos to Public Works. Vehicle expense budget has 49.66% remaining. So that brings us on target to where we were. They were a bit referred in Q1 that has some unplanned mechanical work that needed to be done. And again, with cost expenses and fuel, that stabilized well for the 4.8, so reasonably on track for budget for that. Winter control is still the same. We've only got 27.96 left in the budget due to increased events and material need Q1. So we'll see if that balances out. We do have earmark reserves for that, so we do need to do a drop in certain account.
Thank you, Treasurer, for the report. It is those last, especially the first one of the last of those last three. Quarter one seemed like it was going to, we're heading in a little bit of the wrong direction. Certainly commend, the group of Public Works and the Director of Operations for turning that around and getting it back on track and getting it where it should be. So well done for that. It's fantastic to read. That the Spencerville Ice Arena rentals and the canteen revenues were higher than what was anticipated, and that there was that increased usage. Although it does say lower permits received, the activity in quarter two has been far more substantial as well. So really, again, highlighting the good news in the reports. It looks like we're well on track. That staff's managing our budgets and respecting the taxpayer dollar really well, and making sure that they're taking great control over their departments and leading us in the right direction. So I will say thank you to all staff for that. Now, having made those comments, I'm gonna open it up for questions. Does anyone have any concerns or any comments, questions on the report?
I just.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, through the courier, we're down 27, we got 27% of our roads, right, left, winter projects, is that right? We're in, 27.96 left in our winters.
That left for winter control.
Right. So. Up here, do we have the $168,000 in reserves where it says winter control?
Yep.
168.9.
Yep.
Thanks. Good. So we're good. Unless someone, I'm not gonna say we're good. Go ahead. You don't know what the center.
I had it before, you know?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I mean, winter control is a funny one because it's not, we have 3 months essentially, we're doing snow this year, and then, but usually it's like end of November, December, we're doing that. So what's normal? I mean, it can't be 50% winter. Control.
No, I think in. Probably wanted to bring off, closer to 40-45% every month of the meeting. If you think about it, you can use it from January to March, and then again from October to December. So you kind of. You
Got a quarter.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think unless anybody else has anything, I don't see anybody reaching for the sky, so thank you for that one. Good, the good news in that one is good. We're well on track for without touch wood really quick. Well on track, so that's good to know. E is the quarter council remuneration report. I think it's probably still in your hands again.
Yeah. So just some background on this, provide law 2020-12, passed on February 24th, 2020. Just establish the rules in taking the reimbursement of eligible expenses to the council members. Again, I've updated it up to June 30th, 2023. Nothing has changed on the expense side from Q1, so it's all exactly the same, other than the honorarium for Q2 is added to the first column on that report, but there was no change in expenses. Nobody attended any conferences or anything.
Yep. Special meeting allowance goes on in December at the end of the year for special meetings like the one we had earlier tonight, correct?
Yeah, that's paid out at the end of the year, similar to how we do honorariums for the fire department. So it all gets paid out in some.
Okay, and I think great, it's good that council's being very respectful of taxpayer dollars. There are conferences and conventions at all of our disposal. Anytime we can sign up for AMO courses, beyond the planning, there's lots of courses to sign up for if anyone wants to utilize that. We do have dollars in our budget so that you can do some education and continue that. And we do have AMO coming up in August as well. I attend through United Counties, so mine doesn't show up on this. The United Counties pays for it, but I encourage fellow councilors. It's great to go to these, and there are lots of opportunities to learn and make ourselves better in our roles. So does anyone have any questions with councilor remuneration expenses? Oh, and then let's move on. Hey, you're off the hook for a bit. To facility maintenance report and facility status report. Both I'd like to facilities manager Mike Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the first one is the facility maintenance report, which is the second quarter report, which basically is from the April, May, and June months. The first list of items for the facilities. So work orders are primarily items that are done in our facilities that are contracted by to a third party. it's not typically, our staff that are doing those types of things. I will indicate that the bulk of our facilities, had in May, the electrical safety inspections done at all of our facilities. So that's why it's indicated on there. Some minor repairs at a couple of our facilities, but nothing, major, very minor in nature. The second page represents service requests. Service requests are things over and above the daily operations of my staff, what they do, or like they're requested to do from other facilities. And it's just a list of items that the staff have completed over the 3 months.
Thanks for that, Mr. Spencer. I just have 2 comments and then I'll leave it to the group. I don't see that there should be a whole lot of discussion, but one is that staff helped in the installation, I think it was under parks, right? The installation of the new play structure. It's funny, every single time that we've been down, this is just an observation, just every time that we've been down there, we were watching the staff doing the installation stuff. It was fantastic, eagerly awaiting everything to get put in. But every time we're down there now, I think when we went down to look at the snake last night to see how big it had gotten, there were 12 kids or 13 kids playing on the new one and nobody on the old one. So certainly being received well. The second comment I had, and it's more of a question, what exactly did we do to help out with assisting with cormorant control? Do you know that offhand? I know that Mr. Courtney does our cormorant control. There's a part in parks that says that we assisted with something in cormorant control. If we don't have that,
Yeah, we just got
a couple of trees, a couple of the root trees. Yeah, good. That's good. Oh, that's good. I think our commitment to the cormorant control certainly is paying off in our fisheries, and we know that all the time. And it's a job well done by our group. I just was wondering what outside of that, Mr. Courtney's contract, what exactly we were doing. So to the group, any questions, comments? Seeing none, move on then to the facility staff report, if you would, Mr. Spencer.
Thank you, guys, and Mr. Mayor. So the facility staff, again, it runs April through till the end of June, and it incorporates the Regional Center for the on-site meeting that we meeting on. Doesn't community hall and all other things. Just indicate that the ball program this year is running very successful again here in Johnstown. Special, they do have 3 teams that are playing in Special this year. We use for typically on Mondays. That's a spillover, but here it's used 4 nights a week, sometimes 5 nights a week. Front and back ends. So, and then it just breaks it down. The sub center numbers have increased obviously a little bit over the last 3-4 months because of Monday night usage of the big council meetings. So that's it.
No, that's good. And I just think that there's a lot of good, there's a lot of good in this one as well. The ball diamonds getting the use that they're getting, showing a resurgence, and some of that the diamonds hadn't been used for a long time. The new dugouts here in Johnstown put in by the board, and it seems like there's a little bit of a rejuvenation going, and I think that this highlights it. One question that I had is in this year's budget, there was $20,000 for lights in the Cardinal ball field. Were they ever installed? Have they been installed? Are we going to install?
No, they have not been installed, and it's unlikely that we will install.
Okay, good. No, it's just a question that I should have asked by email. My apology for not asking in advance. Okay. Does anyone have any comments, questions regarding the status report? Councilor Smith.
I'm looking here, like, there's no baseball at all in the village of Cardinal.
Through the chair to Commissioner no, there is not. This is year 3. No minor ball program being run in the Cardinal. The only thing that gets used is the Labor Day weekend. There is a organization that runs all of it. That's the only time that gets used.
So we were there to like, there's gotta be kids in Cardinal 7 years. Are they going to Johnstown or?
I would say that a lot of, like the group that is organized every year, they come from all their English stuff and outside of their stuff too. There are quite a few kids that play there that are from so there's no volunteer group that was step up to run anything. Special, again, like I said, this year they're back and they have 2 features here. That's typically because Stephanie and Steve Summers have stepped up to help. Here it's Mike Lindbergh, and it was a whole slew of volunteers. I don't want to name them all, and I would help this one, but it all is spearheaded by Mike Lindbergh. Is
A good pastime for Councillor Smell to maybe get things rolling in the Cardinal. Kids, so.
Any questions you asked?
I have a question before we move on.
Yeah, sure. Go
Uh, Mark, excuse me, the Councillor Martel was born, what, maybe he could.
We forget words once we're at the table. Go ahead.
The 20,000 for lighting that we put in our budget for 2023, and you said that we probably won't replace them. Is there a reason why, or is it, do we need to, or why aren't we?
well, through the chair to Deputy Mayor, we had put that in. The poles are there. There's some of the fixtures that need to be done, like the valves and what have you. But then in conversation with our CAO and the treasurer, the fact that the dam is not being utilized at all. I just kind of think that it might be best to maybe put that money forward for next year or just not do anything right now. We did replace some of the bulbs last year before so there are a couple of lights that are out because it's the mouses that are not upgraded properly. But I don't know that it's worth spending $20,000 to put new lights in right now when the time is not being used at all.
We have I mean, the Cardinal Festival is having a blooper ball tournament on Labor Day, I do believe. And they do play at night. And I mean, I'm not saying spend $20,000. I just wonder if we could have maybe St. Lawrence Hydro kind of look at that and see exactly what we need to at least get the new lights in. Myself, because you know, they do bring, I know you're saying it's not being used, but it's gonna be used. And last year it was used for probably 10 or 15 teams that weekend. And I hate that, you know, have no lights if we can.
The lights that were available to them is what is available right now.
Once they use last year.
There are just some that aren't working. So I'd say there's about 80% of the lights are functioning. The thought was to replace them all.
That's fine, but what I'm saying is, why can't we get St. Lawrence Hydro there to at least see what it costs to get those 20% work?
St. Lawrence Hydro wouldn't do that. That's not their scope of work, to be quite honest with you. It would be myself bringing in one from the contractor to do the work. And that's what we would have been doing. We would have been putting that in, getting quotes for the replacement of all the lights.
But they're doing street lights, so why wouldn't we just ask them to take a peek at least when they're down there?
There was a time when St. Lawrence utility would be more than open to come at any time to do, but that has passed.
Thank you.
So I just want to follow up once quick. So if the festival committee does have a ball tournament on Labor Day weekend. The ball diamond one would be maintained to you know, a playable standard. We have bases and everything so that it can be used and the lights are functioning well enough that they can have beams at night.
That is correct. We maintain the diamond every week for us, every week underneath the bleachers are ripper snip and clean. 2 weeks ago, we had the public works assistants and we back dragged the entire diamond. And so it's ready to go. All we have to do is line it, put the bases in. You know, for washings, which is what we did last year for
And so, and again, just making sure that it's clear on the recording. That if needed for Labor Day weekend, as it has been in years past, it will be ready to go.
it was very awesome. I'm going to be ready this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Good. Very good. Everybody else? Okay, now this is where it gets funky, right? So now we're looking at G B or G2, right? We're gonna look at item J, which is the Infrastructure Ontario debenture for the Johnstown Spencerville drainage project. And we're back to the paper.
So, yes, apologies for the change in the agenda. Just figure it's better to talk about this as it does tie in to our GIC investment discussion. So as mentioned earlier in the capital report, we have substantial completion on the drainage project as a whole. So now we have a decision to either convert the construction loan we have with the Construction Ontario to a 20-year amortization debenture, or we can repay some of that loan, or all of that loan. At the June 12th meeting, I did present 4 options, and one of them was with the GIC funds, and one of the suggestions was that we can use a portion of that to pay off a portion of the debenture. It's not indicated in the report, but we'll put that again as an option if council wants to consider that. As written, and what was budgeted for, I budgeted for this to be converted to a debenture, so I put principal and interest payments from July to December in the 2023 budget. But since we have a GIC coming due, and I need to reach out to the Infrastructure Ontario to set up when we can schedule that venture. It probably is for discussion at committee. If there's an appetite to use a portion of the maturing GIC funds to go to any of these drainage projects. So the spectacle drainage project, the amount that we borrowed from Infrastructure Ontario is $833,726.45. And for Johnstown, it was $1,060,980.08. The one thing I will say is if we are going to consider using a portion of those GIC funds to pay a loan or off the construction loan, then there should be a repayment schedule to the reserves. Paying the whole construction loan off would be a draw of about 15% of our reserves. So that's very substantial. And if we are going to consider going down that path, then there needs to be a repayment schedule to build up those reserves. Now the recommendation here says that what I was originally coming for was direction to approach Infrastructure Ontario to say that the project's complete, we'd like to venture, and they would send over rates, they would send over schedules that I would present at a later date. But given the time with the next item in the agenda with funds coming due, we do have an opportunity to not venture the whole thing. One thing as a suggestion for committee to consider, if we were to use the funds from the GIC to pay off the Johnstown portion of the construction loan, so the one that's just over $1 million, I would recommend a repayment schedule of 15 years to the reserve fund to put that money back at no interest. It would be about $70,000 a year that I would recommend to go back into that reserve account if we want to add an interest component to that, the time value of money and whatnot, then every percentage of interest would be about another $10,000 you would have to have That's a report I will take direction from a committee, and I do have, depending on how it goes, change the recommendation or then the rest.
Okay, one question before we begin, we keep referring to it as the GIC renewing, so the GIC is reserve money from which fund?
Industrial Park Land Reserve.
Industrial Parkland Reserve, and in that reserve total there when it's time to be renewed is 2,000,000.
2,611,000 and 3 million in total, versus just over 3 million in total as far as what's in the reserve fund now. So it's 486.
3 million, three. Okay, so basically you're looking to get, from me, you're looking for direction on, how we want to do the venture for the drainage project.
Correct.
Right, whether we want to partially fund it, fully fund it, or self-fund it.
Right, and if it is, just as we're just going to enter into the venture for the funds, then nothing changes on this report. It's just I need this before the approach. I will result on a resolution and stuff to get started.
Okay, good, thank you. I'm gonna start this end of the table, Mr. Hunter.
I don't think we should be considering funding the whole thing of the industrial park. You've got any future plans of expanding your industrial park? Maybe if there's 3 million there, maybe a 1 million. Take a out lower the cost. You know, look at it, but either way, you're committing future council to pay that. We've been through that before.
I would just comment back that this council is still paying back as well, even though it was fully debentured, right?
Yeah.
So either way, whether it's a payback the money you borrowed from yourself, which is ultimately taxpayer money that was collected to build that reserve, it is taxpayers' own money, right? Like, instead of borrowing from the bank to pay down the rent, right? Either way, you're paying back.
Just a point of what council wants to plan in the future.
Yeah.
Ready cash.
On it.
Yeah, but I don't know about the treasury department advisor of what the proceeds would be, but if you paid it all off now. Or I doubt that you'd be eligible to re-debenture if you were to shut it. Very got a one shot at it eventually.
Yeah, now that the final completion, we're on 128. We know it right now.
We gotta do whatever we're gonna do. Do you want to add more? I mean, you're a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this stuff. You've been around here for a long time, so.
We did it before.
Yep.
Council before your money was borrowed from the industrial land bank to be local. This is what basically used just a bigger amount. It's just I just have to judge the value of what we're doing and where you're going to gain the most money. Like we know interest rates are climbing. Where you venture to maybe 5.5%, not money in 6 months time, not money in the bank, so in reserves making 6.5%.
Yeah, I know. And then you look at it over, and the treasurer could speak to this, but if it's a 20-year loan, the 4.5 at the rate looks pretty good now. 3 years ago or 2 years ago, it looked kind of terrible, right? So, it fluctuates.
Well, you can use is that
4.58, isn't it?
4.5.
Yeah.
It's
4.58.
yeah.
when the rate was the venture, that was a good rate. We were saving about 1.5%. Then we dropped down, it was actually cost us money for the last 30 years or so, now it's making its money, again, it's over a 30-year period, that's the decision the council took time. And financial advisors how what's the long range plan. We lost for a lot because of COVID stuff, totally unexpected, that you're ever gonna drop down to a 1% interest rate, don't think of it. Games and play, like how you want to. Council decision was basically what we're looking for your future, what we want to do in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
With the investment process.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, thank you. Councilor
Well,
Smiley?
I agree that we shouldn't spend it all. Because I'm really not financially, these guys are, this is new to me, but I would waste all that money for a job.
Good.
You know, I'm gonna look at the benchmark number of 78,000. I know it's over 20 years instead of over, 70,000 in 15 years. But 15 years from now with inflation, that's gonna feel a lot less. Anyways, I think I'm in favor of a full bench and keeping the rest of the keeping the money available for the industrial park.
I'd like to put something down on it and to go 1.8 million for sure. And can we pay that off when we want to, or once we get in there, we're done, for 20 years, that's the killer. That's and we know it's gonna last us 60 years. We're taking a 20-year loan there.
From a. There's always a. Good debt versus bad debt. So, you're if you're gonna take a 20-year loan out on an asset that's gonna last 60 years. You're gonna get an extra 40 years of useful life out of that asset where you're not going to do anything. Take out, a 10-year loan on equipment.
But asset management states that we've got to keep putting away, or we're gonna be right back to where we are.
Yeah, and also going back to where the financial indicator report that was presented in January when we started the budget process. We do have a lot of cash and liquid assets, and we don't have a lot of debt. So there is capacity there, and it's just, what do you want to use that capacity for? Do you want to use it for trade projects? Do you want it for industrial park run? Do you want to use it for roads? There's we're in an excellent position that we have options as a township. It's where we want to go.
Because we have the Cardinal one too yet, right?
It's different though.
Coming up.
It's funded by the user.
Well, it's not all funded by users. We still have a taxation there we're gonna have to for. Right? On that Cardinal one?
That one's a little bit different.
Okay.
It has to be board by the rate.
By the users.
I like to put at least 400,000 on it.
But we
It's myself.
Councilor Martel?
Well, this is way above my pay grade, and everybody at the table knows that. I would go in favor of the recommendation.
I don't know, I think the venture is probably a good idea. I mean, if you're going to do a 15-year routine anyway, money that you're using to pay down, and you're still making payments. And you don't have that. It just seems sort of.
I get that, okay. I'm gonna weigh in on this one, it's unusual, but I think, having been here for a term, have an opinion on this one, and I know normally the chair and the rules, Robert's rules may not actually contribute to this discussion, but this one's too important to not contribute to this. So I have to at least weigh in a tiny bit. I sat at the table on the last term and we discussed many ways to we knew we were gonna have to pay for this at some point. We were chasing a dream with Job Site Challenge and certainly using a lot of that industrial park money to, trying to save as much of that industrial park money as we could to free up those 10,000 acres. And I think that we'd still like to free up those 10,000 acres. Unfortunately, the Job Site Challenge and that part of that ship has sailed, and there is no reasonable short-term expectation that we're going to come into that land, or at least nothing that we're aware of at this moment. While there is use for a small amount or a certain amount of industrial park reserve, I'm not really sure that taxing folks so that we can earn interest is what government's about. It's about providing services, and I struggle with collecting tax dollars and so that we can earn 6.5% on those dollars. It's counter to the way that what I believe in. So utilizing some of those reserves, if we're cash flush and we're very little debt, so assuming a small amount of debt and using some of the cash seems to make the most amount of sense to me. And if and I worry about the 10,000 acres, I worry about the opportunity to purchase that. But if the Job Site Challenge was to come along, we've already learned. I have to be careful what I say here. We necessarily wouldn't. I can't say any more than I've already said. So I think if we needed, if a land purchase came available and we needed to borrow, we could reasonably borrow. But the odds of us having that purchase doesn't seem reasonable to me right at the moment. And the reserves are there. We have this project to pay for, and it seems to make more sense to me. I don't want to tie the hands of five councils from now or 4 councils from now and hamper their decision-making process this way when we have a good amount of reserves in that industrial park that all of the people of the township put their money forward to pay off this project. So if it was me, or I guess it is partially, I would say I'd be more likely to fund that not the entire amount, not the 1.8, but the $1 million portion of that, or whatever the amount for the Johnstown portion is, let's say, so that it's only one debenture. So that there would be, the 833, 726.45, I would say leave to debenture. And if my calculations were somewhat close to right on that, it equals out to about, am I right in thinking this? That equals out to about 1% taxation per year on the repayment schedule?
Yes, if we're just it would be 7,732, so about 1%. I haven't done the calculation, but tax rates have gone up, so it's about 1%.
So for 1 year, a 1% tax increase. One year, that tax increase obviously stays the next year, right? You increase it 1 year and then it stays that way. That money would be enough to pay that loan off over the years. It would be there, right? Without any other impact year after year. We have the 128,000 in payments coming off in 2024, in the year 2024. It'll actually free up funds to pave more roads and to do more projects by doing it this way. I just think to me it's a no-brainer. Fund the 1.06,000 or 60,000 from the the industrial park reserve, and leave the 833, 726.45 to debenture, and pay back over 15 years. That way we're borrowing from ourselves and not borrowing from a bank. And even if we do lose 2% per year on that right now, it's still better than losing 4.5% to the bank. So, to me, it just makes a lot of sense.
True. I understand where we're coming from on that. With that, back to 2024, like when you talk about, 1% increase, doesn't necessarily mean that will happen. If you remember from the very first budget discussion that we had, there's that operating surplus. And so really this doesn't necessarily equate to a tax levy increase. This just means there's 70,000 left of that operating surplus that contributes to that.
Right.
So just to be transparent on that piece, it really is, this does affect our operating service. So operating surplus, we'll have an ability to spend on capital. But in 2024, it fall back down.
Yep.
So it's a 1 year up and then the other thing too is with the long-term debt that I had put in the financial report, should we go this way, then that number would be for the year. That would also include the carbon prevention, because that wasn't in there. So we wouldn't, wouldn't really be taking on anything new that's not in the Q2 report.
And just for clarity, so that everyone understands about the cardinal, are we discussing it later? No.
Yes. 2 more from now.
Yeah, okay. So just so that everybody understands that when they're making this decision, that decision is slightly different in the sense that that full amount that's being debentured for that one has to be repaid to the buy and only buy the users that are connected to that very system. The folks in Johnstown don't pay for it. The folks in Spencerville don't pay for it. Nobody else other than the folks connected and are using the service will pay for that debenture. The road and the other work that's funded by the other levels of government offset those costs. Costs that we're going to borrow for are directly related to either water or sewer. And it's the users that pay for it, not the residents of the entire township. This one, the residents of the entire township pay for it. It's rather a little different. Okay, so we need to give direction. So I have to corral the cats, so to speak. There isn't consensus here though, anyways. Does staff have a recommendation? I've heard 2 of us speak towards wanting, eventually one who wants to follow the recommendation. No, I'm asking after the discussion, do they have any? Because you said you wanted to fund part of it. I said I wanted to fund part of it. I don't know what. You said borrow. I think you said borrow. I think you said borrow. You said borrow, and I don't even count what I said. Part of it. Okay, so we're 3 to 2. We're still sort of divided. So I wish I could let you in on the conversation. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Okay, so we need to discuss this a little more. We need to figure this through. So we have to give some direction. So I mean, if it was up to me, I would say fund the $1,060,980 through the industrial park reserve and debenture the 833,726. That's what I would.
You want to pay $1 million off?
Yeah.
So it's 894,706. You want to finance 894, is that right?
No, I want to pay the full amount of the Johnstown off. Right, because then it's not 2 debentures. Sorry, the CEO's got his hand up. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, it may be easier to look for either the secondary to either move forward the recommendation in front, or if you wanted, somebody wants to modify that, to indicate directing the treasurer, the infrastructure and areas,
to convert the Spencerville drainage infrastructure.
I'm trying to get there, see,
Well, I think instead of.
if you want me to remove myself,
I would just think it may be better to do a root second.
if you want me to remove myself from the chair, I'm happy to do so and move the recommendation myself. But what I'm trying to do is get somebody to move a recommendation forward.
recommendation that you have.
That's up to you to move a recommendation forward, that's, trying to get that moving forward, there's 3 of us at the table that are supporting. Using some Port of Industrial Reserve, there's 2 that are saying move the recommendation as it is. I'm trying to find some ground in the middle so that we have consensus unanimously on everything.
I would be happy to make a recommendation that we
You're making a motion, yes.
make a motion that we pay off the 800,000 and eventually the rest.
So you're making a motion to pay off the Spencerville portion of
Correct.
it, so that would be the 833,726.45.
Yes.
And you would pay that off with the industrial park reserve and debenture the 1 million.
Right.
Okay, so we've got a mover for that. That's clear on the motion.
Through the chair, I can connect it a little bit when it comes to council, but we didn't understand what looking for at this point is basically
Reverse of what I was suggesting. Yeah, that's fine. No, that's fine. He's moving the motion, so I'm very comfortable with that. That's where we're getting there. And so then you need a second. So do I have a seconder for that number for the 833,726?
Yep.
Okay, we have a second. So we have a motion on the floor. It either passes or fails, and we still have to give direction. So discussion on that amount. Anyone? Discuss
On that, so the only question I have, so then the 833 that's paid off, is that gonna be replaced to the reserve over time? So in other words, it's the same, we're talking the difference of say 78,000 and maybe 76,000, so I overall or whatever else.
So over 15 years or over 12 years, you want to see the 833 paid back to the industrial reserve?
Well, I mean, it's, you know, to your point before, it depends on what if we ever plan to do something with that. We need to figure that out, right? Yeah, that was a question. Are we paying off the reserve or are we not paying off the reserve? Repaying the reserve or not?
Anything that's not spent over the years under industrial park goes back in reserves automatically. In our budget, automatic.
So it goes back into the industrial
reserves, yeah, automatic. Goes in.
So you want to pay it back? Are you wanting to add to the motion that we pay back the 833? Yes, no.
No, I mean, you know, to your point, I mean, it's up in the air. There's things that the industrial lands. But you know, we might.
Okay, so question, I think it's worth commenting on. For me, I think whatever we take into that industrial reserve, it's there for a reason. It is there for future purchases, regardless of what we've got going on. We're gonna borrow from ourselves. I think we should repay ourselves. So for me, I would feel more comfortable if we are going to go down this route, that we actually, we do pay it back. So I don't feel better with that too. So can we add that into the motion then, if it's supported? Would you go, Councillor,
I'm fine with that.
and you're not okay with that? You don't want to pay back at all?
I'm not saying that, I'm saying we always build up our reserves if there's, if we have money left over from that. From the industrial park. In other words, if there's 100,000 left over from our budget, 100,000 goes back into, if we sell land.
I just want to clarify with staff that comment is correct. So if at the end of the year, if we have a surplus, does it go back? Does that surplus at the end of the year, is it dedicated to go to the industrial park reserve?
Okay. Please.
Through the mayor, so any surplus at the end of the year typically is divided up amongst the departments based on the 5-year forecast of capital spend. If council at the end of that year where there is a surplus, could they pass a resolution to direct it to a particular location? Yes, but that would be outside of the typical policy that is in place.
And I'll add to it if I may, we did it 1 year with winter surplus, I think. Our winter surplus is low. I think at the end of the year, we decided to do some of the surplus to top up the winter. Well, I suppose that's the same thing, because it is the public works department.
Yes, on occasion that has been done, I will keep 1 year, the surplus was used towards the potentially on the drainage project.
Right. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So if we have $300,000 surplus, divided up into the 5, and is that part of it?
So through the mayor, there's 300,000 surplus at the end of the year. It would be allocated based on what the projected 5-year capital spends of each department would be over that time.
Just for clarification on my part now, would any of those be the industrial park reserve?
I would say typically no.
Comfortable with that amendment then to the motion?
No.
That we pay it
No.
now? So you want to remove your second if it's added in?
Yeah, I don't want it. I'm not gonna, because we have land in itself, and that would go back into the next. That's all I'm saying.
So you want to go over and not pay that?
Because, yeah, what happens if we have land and we sell some land? It goes automatically into our industrial.
Okay.
Reserve.
Right, I can go along with that. I just want to get it done, so. And we can always change, I mean, there's no guarantee that if we choose to do it the way we're choosing to do it, the next council would continue it anyways, right? We could say that we would put it in for 15 years at a, a repayment schedule of 60,000 a year. There's no guarantee that the next council will continue to do that, or even us, if it was a year. We decided it would be just a move we'd make today. So if we decide.
I'll second, I'll go along with it, just get it moved on, guys. Let's just get it moved on, because we all agree we want to pay it off. Pay it from our
And if we
3 millions.
And so we're not really tying our hands. If we decide in next year's budget to not do that allocation to the reserve, we don't have to do it. We'd just be breaking the policy that we would be setting tonight to repay it. We wouldn't have to repay it. There's nothing that forces us to actually do it.
Through the mayor, that is correct. The ability exists for council to pass a resolution in particular circumstance.
I'm going.
Yeah, okay,
So if we don't have any money next year in the budget to put it back in reserves, we don't have to put it in reserves. I get it.
okay, so I think then the motion, I just want to make sure that everyone. I just want to make sure that everyone's clear on the motion then. So the way that I understand with a friendly amendment, if the mover and the second will agree to it, is that 833, 726.45 would be paid from the industrial reserve to be paid back over a 15-year. Can't let Brady off the speech. Over a 15-year period. Yeah, I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on what they're voting for. Or are you going to read it to me?
Yeah, I've been kind of.
Okay, so. All right,
So.
so those are the highlights then. Read about those.
So we recommend that council direct the treasurer to engage IO to convert Johnstown drainage construction loan over 20-year venture to the current IO interest rate to pay off the and change $100,000 of the Bensville drainage project through the industrial park reserve and repay that through the over 15 years.
Good. Everybody comfortable with that? It's as it's written. You don't love it.
And the balance we're gonna pay to infrastructure. 20 years or 15 or 20 years. And you're saying you wanna pay the reserve back in 15, is that right?
What we want, yeah. I had originally, in my mind, I originally had it the opposite. My mind was that we were gonna use 1 million and we were gonna have 833 as the leftover, and we would pay back over 15 years. But this works for me. Whatever works, I just think using the cash we have, plus borrowing some, sort of accomplishes both things, so. Good. Further discussion. You don't have. Anyone? No, all right, hearing none, then so I will call the question then on the motion, all in favor? Good, it's good, there we go, that took a while, but good job. Okay, so now we go to item H. Now, how does item H look after that discussion? Do we remove item H then from a discussion? How do we, what does item H become?
I still need direction as to what to do with proceeds, so.
Okay.
So again, in July 2022, 2,500,000 was withdrawn from the Industrial Park Plan Reserve Fund and placed in a 1-year non-redeemable GIC. So there is a typo in there, it says non-renewable, but it's supposed to read non-redeemable. At least I was consistent with the mistake that I made, it's through the whole report. Except for one. So as we discussed in closed session, we would take $1 million and place that in a 1-year non-renewable GIC at the best rate available at time of renewal. The balance of 1,614,000, which includes the interest of 114,000, will be transferred back to the Industrial Park Plan Reserve Fund. If the funds are not planned to be used in 2023, the fund should be placed in a 180-day non-renewable GIC to take advantage of the higher rates. Financial considerations on that, current interest rates for the reserve account is 5.05%. Should the Fed raise their interest rates on Wednesday, that would go to 5.3. The board was able to secure 180-day GIC for 6.34%. If the funds will not be used in 2023, the GIC would generate an extra 10,000 or so in additional revenue. So based on our discussion is for number 1, whereas the director treasurer to invest $1 million of the GIC proceeds in a 1-year non-redeemable GIC at the best rate received at the time of renewal. That would change to the director treasurer to use $833,726.45 to repay the construction loan for the Mexico drainage project. And then number 2, only the number would change. So we would then have the balance of that in a 180-day non-redeemable GIC, which puts us into January, which then, if there's decisions that needs to be made for the 2024 budget, you've got some cash that's maturing right then that you could choose to reinvest, redeploy, reallocate.
Okay. So in the end, then. Direct the treasurer to invest 1 million of the GIC, so that one will change to 833, right? In the recommendation. And directed to invest 1.614, so with that number.
That number will change, so. That would change to. That would change to $1,780,273.55. That will go into the 180 day.
We're gonna be putting more, sorry, what was the number again?
$1,780,273.55.
So we're taking the leftover from the million, adding it to the 1.6, putting it in a 6-month non-redeemable.
Yeah.
And we're not, that million's going, where that 833 is going to be that.
We're deferring, instead of putting money into a 1-year GIC, we're gonna use the money to pay the construction loan. And then reassess in January when the 180 day non-redeemable GIC comes due. How do you want to do that? Do you want to redeploy, reinvest, or
Have it in reserves. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, okay. And so best available rate.
Best available
When you
rate.
shop it, we'll get, I mean, it's worth noting that I think the latest port one was over 6%.
6.34%.
6.34, so.
With an interest rate, I think could be a little better than that on 150.
Yeah, so we wait another week or two. I mean, the feds are talking more this next week that they're looking at doing
It
it.
doesn't mature until July 27th, I believe.
Yeah, so we've got a little bit of time.
This just gives direction to the treasurer to go with the policy those rates.
Okay, so can you read me then what the actual recommendation should be?
Sure. The recommendation should be that committee recommends that council directs the treasurer to use $833,726.45 from the proceeds to pay the construction loan for the Spencerville drainage program. And two, directs the treasurer to invest the proceeds of $1,780,273.55 into a 180 day non-redeemable GIC at the best.
Good. Yeah, well, that's good. That's fantastic. So, before I ask for mover, and we're supposed to have mover and second first, right? So I'll moved. Okay. Second, okay, further discussion on the investment of this and where this is going.
Only that, just, I don't want to have to come back again, but. Is there any chance that those numbers were not by any to have this whole conversation again, or is it? Like, for sure, those are the exact numbers, or should we just say the balance? Of that goes into the $180.
Those are the exact numbers. Because,
Okay.
we've been paying interest on this construction loan every month, so it's the principal that needs to be repaid, and that's what we.
Okay, that's right. I just, I know we could have a conversation. I don't want to have to have. Costs more to have the conversation sometimes. Right?
Okay, so mover second and further discussion. All right, hearing none. I will call the question then on the GIC investment, then all in favor. Okay, so item here. H. Sorry, that was H, wasn't it? Or that was whatever. All right, Maple View Lodge, how's that? Or Maple View Landings. All right. There is a recommendation with this one. And the recommendation is that committee directs council to approve a 7,500 annual donation to Maple View Landings for 2023, 24, 25 for a total donation of 22,500 on behalf of the township. We had Mary Hogenboom and Leslie Todd from the fundraising committee here to do a presentation. Was that at council or was that at the last CDC? That was at our last council meeting. Made a very good presentation. It is included, their package of that is included with this. And I will say that the lodge fundraisers are doing a fantastic job of working towards, I think their goal is $3 million, and I think that they're at 1.3 to 1.4 million. Last that I heard, and they're, about almost 50% are just getting over 50% of the way there now. One of the things that we need to consider with this is with the 22.5 is that there are a few things, if that's the way this group chooses to go, just make a donation, but there are a few positive things here as well. There can be rooms that are named the Edwardsburg Cardinal Room. There's a walkway that can be named the Edwardsburg Cardinal Walkway. There are dining rooms that can be named the Edwardsburg Cardinal Dining Room should we choose to do that and ask for something like that. I can't find the page that's on, but it's in there somewhere. So I don't know how strongly everyone feels around the table. It's a discussion we obviously have to have, but there are options for that amount, and there are things that come with it. So having said that, I'll open the floor for discussion. Does anyone want to go? Show enough hands. You have your hand
So
up?
if we get if we give them this money, we can choose 3 different things to put our name on.
No, on page 60 of your package-ish, I think,
They have green leaves, red leaves too.
50, you get those automatically. 59, 60, 61 have the major gifts that come along with naming rights.
Yeah.
So like you get a Sally Port for touring bikes for 20K, you get the called the Edwardsburg Cardinal group. If you wanted to have resident rooms for 5K, you get the name room. So there are these things. If we're doing that, we need to name what we have the opportunity to do that. If you want a community room, you have to do 25K. So you have to amend the recommendation slightly to do that. So if you want a dining room, it's 30K. It just depends on the route, if it's supported at the table at all. We don't know that yet, but one way or the other, if we're going to do something, this is the option that comes along with it, should we choose. So just
through the chair, with the recommendation, I think it's just, do we want to give the donation? I think that those naming things be decided later.
good point.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't need to be the dead. Yeah, right, sure, we can do that later. No, thank you for that. That might save us a lot of time. What do you want to do?
I have a question. We're donating 22,500 for the next 3 years. Is that right? And then 2024 and 2025. I'm all for it, but it's not budget for 2023. Where are we gonna find the $22,500?
It's not $500, it would be $7,500.
Okay, it's $7,500 per year. Where are we gonna find the $7,500? Not budget for
No,
2023. That's all. I'm for it 100%. Could you find 7,500?
well, I believe one of the options that Mayor said is if we do commit to that for the 2023 component, we can wait until the end of the year. Should be if we have.
And we got a lot of 15.
Yeah, and then we can use
Fine.
surplus to pay it. So we can agree to the donation, but we don't have to cut a check until the end of the year.
Cool. Good. Anyone want to contribute?
Donation for you.
It's a fantastic.
This side?
No, I don't want to be bad. Nope, I'm good.
Relax.
No, I mean, I have so many people who talk to me about the $80 million, and it seems, and I know it's for different purposes and everything else, so which are coming for, 22,000 our number, and it's just, it's one of those things that, I'll support it, but I get, it's probably in an area we'll probably seldom have people go to from our township, but.
Yeah, it's one of those difficult discussions that it's a home for the aged. It's part of the United Counties. We pave roads and if we're paving one in Cardinal right now, that somebody in Rita Lakes probably never drive on either in their tax dollars.
Yeah, like I said, it's the conversations I've had. I haven't had one specifically like this, but
I 100% agree. Yep, yeah, it's a tough one, but I. Guess we get something. Mr. Hunter?
I have, thinking about small donation like that in township. Go with this shit, but, I've heard a lot of stories when you're on county council. It's $80 million building, is it actually $80 million? I've heard it would be up over $100 million by the time it's finished.
Yeah, it's at 80 now. It's
My main thing is mayor is county council. Making priority in the future budget plan was how we're actually. They want to raise $3 million.
Yeah.
Let's pay the $3 million fundraising is a quarter through the mountain.
But what the 3 million goes towards, John, is things that likely will get cut from, from the $80 million building because it's so overpriced, and they help keep creatures comforts for folks that have to go there for the last 8-10 months of their life to help make them more comfortable at the end of life. It's unfortunate that a project that started out at 43 has bloomed to 80. It's a tough job for me to sit at that table and not been part of that getting to 80. But being in that chair now and trying to rein it back as much as we can. Some of the things that are getting cut are things like this, and that this $3 million will go to some of the soft costs. And I think that they're important. They're important to have in there, especially for the residents. Sometimes we talk about the cost of the building. I think it's awful that it's gone, to the 80 million. It's really important it's gotten where it is. The reality is once built, folks do have to live there. And we wanted to try to make sure that it makes the end of life for all those folks as comfortable as it is. So this $3 million goes a long way towards helping, with some of those little costs. So our part's 22,000 out of that, as well as taxes for further on. But it's a small amount for that.
So yeah, I'm not questioning not but the question is basically the floor planning county council is making, because if it's 43 million, you're getting the government. That's not coming in a lump sum, that's per rooms payment that you're getting over the next 20 years or so. The bills will have to be paid from the building.
Yeah, there's and really it's not all 192 that are funded either, right? Like there's some of those are privately funded as well, right? So it's not, yeah, it's a difficult, I don't want to, we're a team there as well as we're a team here, right? And
I just wondered, like, it's been very little put out of the county council.
well,
Actually, the figure of the funding.
yeah, there is a press release that comes out every time it's discussed it has a special committee that's the first Thursday of every month. All the videos are all online, much like our township, and it's regularly in the newspaper. So, all of that information is there. They have a great website in the United Counties to show exactly how that funding will come, what the percentages are from the province, and ultimately, I think we're going to lobby. We're going to AMO to ask for more again, and just with Toronto, he has, supported shovel-ready projects. He supported this one. They've come a long way in the funding and increased over what they originally had, but we're going to need them to come. We're going to need them to come even more to the table, and they have said that they're going to. They just haven't done that yet. So as the project comes forward, I fully anticipate Minister Kwan is going to have more. There'll be another announcement there at some point. It just hasn't gotten there yet.
I'm all in favor of it. Like I say, I just kind of wonder if they're in the state they are, if I, if they'd actually come and basically ask for how a person in the township is not if they're
Yeah, I think it really goes to the soft costs that are gonna get removed, you know, the original 43 didn't cover the soft costs. And it's something, again, that's a frustration level for most of the new mayors at the table to understand that certain things weren't included, and the thought was that they were, but. The person that sat in the seat before me certainly fought to keep the costs as low as the costs could possibly be there. He did a fantastic job, but when you're one voice, you know, there between him and Mayor Burrow, it was, you know, it was a difficult discussion for them, and they lost. So they did the best they could to mitigate, and then once a decision's made, you know, you were on council. Once a decision's made, you don't row in the other direction in the vote. You start rowing in the same direction, and I'll give our former mayor credit for that. You know, he fought against it. Once it was supported, he got in the vote and started rowing. So that's my job, is to row. You know, doing my best. Okay, so with that, we're supporting, or we're gonna have to, we've got to move her in a second here. Help me. We don't, any mover for it then, please. Somebody moves. So move. Moved by the deputy mayor, seconded by Councillor Smale. Is there further discussion on this? No. No, all right, call the question and all in favor? No, you should, good for you.
You know, like I said, it's,
You don't need to say any more words. All right. So we're getting through this. So making you, hey, we don't have a J, that's good. We're on to K. So here we go. Well, we kind of already discussed, right? So recommendations just to look for possible funding sources, correct?
Yeah, this is just more of a matter of process than discussion. So with the County Road 2 project, everything is sort of laid out as far as the historical year, budget. That was approved. We are using some reserves already for this. With the $1,030,150 as per legislative requirement, the current wastewater users will be funding this. And assuming it's a 20-year venture, 4.5% interest would be about $78,000 a year, because out of the operating costs, which gets funded in grants. So what I'm looking for now is just the direct to engage in quotes. We don't have to use Infrastructure Ontario. We can reach out to traditional banks that maybe will give us better options for term repayments. We want to pay that quicker if we want to do any of those other items. So all I'm looking for is permission to go rate hunting.
Yeah, and just so we're clear, the folks that will bear the cost of this have already had, you know, the word's escaping me at the moment. $4 the capital levy, right?
And
Apply.
we are using a portion of that capital levy that's in reserve now to pay that. So
Right.
that will continue to go for future projects.
Then the rest they'll make up of this debenture. We have no choice. This is a project for the bearers of, or the users of the system have to bear the cost. It will be shown in an impact through water and sewer rate, right? I mean, that's just the reality of this project. Yeah,
And
much needed, but definitely.
it's a 60-year useful life. So 20 years isn't bad. We're debenturing $1 million of a $5.5 million.
Yeah.
All levels.
Yeah, it's a great collaboration of all levels, 4 levels, really, provincial, federal, upper tier and ourselves. So all you're asking is for permission to shop rates. To me, this is a simple discussion. So does anyone have any comments or questions or put anything forward? No, we're doing is to shop and rates. So mover for the recommendation is right. Moved by Councilor Ward, second by Councilor Martel. Further discussion, anyone? Call the question, then all in favor? Okay, good. Pretty simple. Gordon, are you going to speak to the DQMS? Just like, sorry. Yeah, permission. Yeah, absolutely. Just super high level. to Gord, if you, or sorry, Director Boss, Mr. Shaw, if you would.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is an information item. It's basically to present the these two as third party findings to committee and council. The background is to maintain and operating for the status as part of the municipal drinking water license program. The top is required a 3-year accreditation cycle. External audits, the first 2 years of the cycle, are basically online or on the phone type audits where the National Sanitation Foundation requested documentation or things on the phone. The third year is a more comprehensive audit. On June 1st and 2nd of this year, we had a 3rd year audit, the 3-year cycle. So there's basically on-site visit. They do they check the facility, so what as well as the documentation. The quality management system consists of 21 elements. The summary on page 6 and 7 of the report for page 1 of this agenda. The findings in summary basically that there were no areas of non-conformance noted. 6 opportunities for improvements, no FIs were noted for consideration by the under. All FIs are recommendation to improve the DQLS, but doesn't well non-conformances required corrective. That the OFIs will be reviewed by staff, discussed and addressed by environmental services group. And as that international strategic registration tool, the student certificate, we actually just got it on 29th. So we have received the information for this.
Good, thank you for the report. It appears as it has for my last several years on here that the system is managed well, it's run well, and that occasionally there's some small minor tweaks or little legislative possibilities for improvement, but otherwise I think it's safe to say that Eric and yourself and the group are doing a fantastic job. So that's what I read out of that report. So I don't think there's it's just information, correct?
Correct.
So I'm just going to ask anyone if they have any questions then, Mr. Shaw, if you're okay with answering a couple if something comes up. So does anyone have any questions with the DQMS water study? I just wanted.
No, it wasn't been brought up, but I think there's these OFIs, these 6 OFIs. I think 5 of them are very procedural, just quick updates on procedures. I think the 6th one that I see, which is number 3 actually, is something about the 5-year plan, which I think I can speak on the treasurer. I think we have a plan to sort of beef up our 5-year plan anyways going forward. We do that, so I think this looks good. She did a good job, and good to see that all the hard work we do daily, you guys do daily, it pays off. So yeah, they do a fantastic job.
Anyone else? Good. No. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Hold on. Last we have item M, which is unmetered residential water users update. So to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item was raised, I believe, in the resident inquiry or what I would call the dispute. And we thought it was probably worthwhile just to route this information in the overarching sense back to committee, sort of indicate that although the universal water metering project within the village of Cardinal was quite successful, we were not able to reasonably install a water meter at every single location. There were some areas that the install was determined to be relatively what I would say is expensive or, timing that we would look to at a later date, potentially revisit if, the individual, in that location was looking to do some, renovations, or modifications, that would be the opportunity time to, look at, trying to install at that time. What was done, as part of that installation period was, we looked at what the average, consumption would be at that house. And we actually increased the estimated cubic meters per month to establish that category.
Average or minimum? Minimum charge or average charge?
Average.
Okay, continue. Sorry, I just wanted.
Average usage.
Okay.
And then there is, I believe, still one location that is a category B that basically refused the installation meter, so that means it would be 3 or 4 times what that category.
So the 3 or 4 times on the refusal is the average rate or the minimum rate?
It would be, I believe it is 4 times the category.
So 3 times the average user rate. So they'd still be paying. So it's an average user rate is $100, they'd be paying 300.
So if you look on page 2, it looks like somewhere with the original package, not the new package, but again, page 159 at 173.
Yeah.
So for an unmetered residential category B, user would be 3 times of that flat rate. So the individual or that particular dwelling paying pretty much 4,700 a year.
So the rate for such residential customers would be 3 times the category A flat rate until the residence metered. So it'd be the 715.31 times 3.
Right.
Which is a little bit lower.
Which is 22.49.
Oh, which is 22. So it comes out to the category B flat water rate. Then that's what it actually comes out to. Okay, so does this policy, there's one person, right, that wasn't willing, the rest of them are impossible situations to install a meter without reasonable harm. So at what point does that end for those users? Because I mean, we just approved or we're about to approve, $1 million worth of debenture work. The other users feel that they're paying their fair share. There are 14, it appears, that aren't. Or maybe they are. Fair enough. That's not fair for me to say that they're not. They very well may be.
Correct.
At what point do we update this bylaw? Is it time to update the bylaw? Is it time to make some changes in it, or how do we get folks that are not metered?
Well, I think the feeling is that enough time has passed that it's time to sort of revisit that. And then I would say that we need to look at those particular locations. Sending notice, we'd have to determine whether the cost of that installation and whether that would be at that individual's cost, because the original installation cost for what we call typical installation were covered from the retail warrants portion. So
Right. So now if a new user was connected to the system, the new user bears the cost of the meter as
They,
part of
they,
their.
they bear the cost of that.
I mean, staff know this. This file, obviously, this came forward as a resident concern. Are there, is it time to look at it again? Like, or is it reasonable to be?
Certainly can be something that is, looked at. You know, it's been, in place since 2013, so it's probably, it's probably reasonable to look at that. Getting to the point where some of the meter transponders are starting to go, and it probably aligns fairly well with that one.
So if we were to do that, would we then, from direction from us to you, would we ask for a report on potential changes then, or what would the direction we be?
I would suggest that in council, the recommendation that staff investigate those non-meter locations. Bring that report with respect to what
The
we
non-metered, right? Then it's 14 of them.
I do believe that
13 plus
20, I believe that there's from what we received.
Well, it's been 10 or 11 years, it's probably time at least to. I mean, you don't want to be punitive on one person, but at the same time, if the house has changed hands, if there's been a sale, if there's been some renos, it's certainly worthwhile, I think, having a look. So as a recommendation, so then from direction from us, we would ask staff to prepare a report on how, on the.
So, Chair, I would think you'd want to report on options that are proceeding with this.
Unmetered. We're fine with metered, that's what we're looking at. Yeah, I think we need that before we go further. I mean, if we're going to do anything with it, we have to have a report with recommendations from staff. We've learned that we can't proceed with their recommendations and with actually expert knowledge. So I think that that's the first step in this process of getting those 14 meters connected if possible. So, okay, so does everyone understand then that discussion, and so I guess the ask would be a mover then for asking staff for that report. So if everyone feels it's worthwhile, if nobody feels that it's worthwhile, then we can move on without it. Forget that we have this discussion. Yes.
First, I have a question for the CAO. I don't understand, was it not bylaws? Like, why doesn't everybody have to have
Bylaws attached.
There is a bylaw, some good. It's awesome.
13 were going to be extremely expensive to be installed in their difficult positions without causing a lot of cost.
cost to the township or cost to the homeowner?
Well, Rito St. Lawrence paid for the original installation.
So through that.
So what about a lot of cost to Rito St. Lawrence to install a meter? Ultimately, it was cheaper to not install.
Are we talking about industrial or are we talking?
No, residential meters on the water. And then there's one person who would let us in their house install. So there's 14 total.
Okay, that's the question I want to find out. Why? How could they stop us if it's I don't think you put them in.
For 10 years, do.
I don't,
Sorry.
please.
So
But they're not mandatory.
So with respect to that, part of the reason why the category B rate was established was an incentive. I believe there were 3 at the start on category B. Now we've been down to 1 because substantially you're paying substantially more for water and sewer. The incentive was that you would eventually come around and move towards that. Towards getting metered. Now. I understand in certain areas where, if the resident moves around and decides that, okay, I'm gonna get a meter, and the meter, now all of a sudden they're using 5 cubic meters, you're dropping from that category of metering down much less, right? Which is something that the system will have to cover as well. So there's some pros and cons, but I think it's worthwhile looking at revisiting some of those locations as things may change.
The potential would be that because it's unmetered, they might use a lot more water than everybody else does. In theory. But if they become metered and they use that amount of water, ultimately they would end up paying more than what they're paying now. What we expect to change would be behavior, and they wouldn't waste. If the premise is that there's water being wasted, then with the meter it would prevent. I mean, that's what the whole metering is about. Is efficient use of the water, and if the suggestion is that it's not being efficiently used, then the payment would change. If it's metered, it would change the behavior.
Potentially that behavior
Is wrong.
it is not
Excessive.
certain.
Yeah. Okay. So that answer, fine, good.
So, yeah, I guess I just, if I see this correctly, the water plus wastewater difference, over the last, say, 10 years is $31,000. How much is a meter? I just lost it. So anyways, we try and resolve these issues. And get them fair amount going on. So fair enough. Okay.
Wait, so we're good. So we need to move on a second then for support for us. So moved. Second by Chris. I'll ask the question if there's no further comments. All in favor? Good. Are we on the inquiries? Yes. Okay, so councillor inquiries, notice of motion.
I have one. Mr. Mayor. I had an email that we have many street lights not working on Mary Street.
So I already would know.
Already know it?
So through the mayor, we've seen the both the email that was sent by.
As I said, I bring it up tonight. Good, thank you. Good.
All right, so mine was easy. Super short tonight for mayor's report. Oh, sorry, I didn't ask if there was any other. Did anyone else have a?
I mean, I don't know if I have an inquiry, but I wouldn't mind knowing a little bit about what Brockville Transit would be looking at if they were to try and help do some sort of a compromise within what they think is a good idea to have the river route run, maybe just the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday of Spencerville Fair and a loop around over to Spencerville. They're the experts. They'll know if it's feasible or what that would look like. I just wouldn't mind if they had that conversation to see what we could do about that. Potentially bring that back to something.
I think you're gonna need support from the group to do that task. Because there's a lot of time that would go into creating a report to change the structure of the river route bus route.
Maybe I guess townships.
That's a big old discussion.
Yeah.
Through there. Like typically Brockville would have 5 buses for 4 routes. Right now, and for the foreseeable for the remainder of 2023, most likely it'll be 4 buses, 4 routes. So, they changed their maintenance schedule, some of that maintenance work where they rotate the bus out and perform maintenance during the day. That would typically, closer to the evening and maybe after shift and sometimes on weekends. Certainly for the week and a half, I would not recommend altering the river road to extend that north when I think all municipalities involved in the river road are trying to determine whether it's something that is viable and it's on a year-to-year basis. And I would keep it consistent for those users that are using it right now, so we can better gauge what that is. And I think if you're looking at shuttle service, probably because it's a smaller bus, it's not the most ideal for struggling from location to location, and probably better with that. Bus company like school bus company. In that happening. I don't think it sounds like it might be something that could really work. I just don't think from the logistics and functionality, it would serve that desired purpose.
But, and I know this isn't a debate, but it's more of an inquiry and emotion. But on the other side of the argument is that it is Brockville who doesn't put weekend extra routes on to run from the north end of Brockville to Tall Ships Festival or to hydroplane races or stuff like that. They don't put on extra buses to go to the North Augusta Labor Day events. No, they don't put on extra ones to support Harbor Days or whatever, Shakespeare Festival, that sort of stuff in Prescott. Not saying that that's not a good idea, or that there's potential to those ideas to support further fairs or further things like the fair. But I just think it's a bigger discussion. I think it's one that we have to have as all three municipalities. We're still trying to give this thing legs. We're still trying to make the river route work the way that it's working. And if, I just don't think this is the right time this year. I think next year, then I think, we need to have a lot more discussion and we need to even see if it's even possible. So.
Yeah, well, I guess that's what I was asking, is it possible? I mean, it sounds like the CAO has more understanding of the operations of the Brockville Transit. And I do that, so I'm okay with that. Actually, it's just fine. So.
Okay, and so then now the mayor had the opportunity through Prescott Mayor to attend the opening night of the Shakespeare Midsummer Night's Dream. I will say it was fantastic. It was well attended. It was a beautiful night. I did not know that Mayor Shanker had the ability to ward off mosquitoes, but he asked at the beginning of the play that mosquitoes stay away. I did it on stage and magically they managed to all stay away. So no, that was really important. It was a really good night for that. So fantastic job by Shakespeare. To anyone who happens to watch our meetings or listen online. I encourage everyone to get out, go and see a night at Shakespeare. The group that's there is doing fantastic work and they're doing a fantastic job. And that is it for my report. Question period. We do have, sorry, yes.
Let's just do the time.
Want to do it now?
To
Do it now? Oh yeah, this is 3 minutes to motion to extend. Moved. Seconded. All in favor? Extended. Good. So moving into question period. Questions are, before we go, questions are about anything that's on tonight's agenda. So one question, one follow-up. Do any of you have any questions on anything that was on tonight's agenda?
Not sure that gentleman's name is on it.
The CAO?
Yeah.
Dave, Mr. Gray.
Mr. Greg, my question would be, are you sure that the non-metered households in Cardinal are paying 4 times the amount, like you said?
So through the mayor, we're in coordination with the warrants, they are the billing agency. and-
Yeah, I understand,
Correct. So.
but it's not rude. Okay. That's my question, because I have spoken to the lady and she said she's not, so that's why I'm asking you, what you said. I'm questioning that.
It's written, I'll interject a bit too as well. It is written in the bylaw that is the way that it is supposed to go. I think it's fair to, I don't know that we can. We'll expect that report back. It'll come back. It'll show if there's any areas for improvement in there, and hopefully it'll identify if there are anything.
Because like you guys have all just said, our rates are going to go up with the new, and it's.
There we go. It's like a little. Okay. Further question?
I'm good for now, thank you.
Aaron, yourself, no?
No.
Okay, all right, so then, we move into closed first, then clear and take a 5-minute break. All right, so who has moving into close up? So,
Yep, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Waddy Snail, that committee proceeds into closed session at 9:59 PM in order to address a matter pertaining to A, section 239 to C, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, specifically industrial parkland. And B, section 239 3.1, educating or training members, typically minutes of closed session dated June 12, 2023.
okay, moved and seconded. I'll call the question to go into closed session, and then we'll take a 5-minute break after I call the question. All in favor? Good, we're in closed session.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Waddy Snail, that the closed meeting of the committee does now adjourn and the open meeting does now resume at 10:27 PM.
Great, questions, comments, anybody? No, call the question then, all in favor, unanimous, good, reporting. It's of closed session that council met to discuss. The proposed pending disposition of land. Direction was provided to the CAO to accept an offer to sell the 6-acre parcel in the Everettsburg Cardinal Industrial Park. And B, that we reviewed the minutes of the closed session dated, reviewed and approved the, does somebody have that motion? Who has the motion for the minutes? Sorry, I didn't write down the minutes.
Didn't have one.
Somebody put this paper on? I don't think. Oh, it's always possible. Oh, there we go. You got another? Okay. So Stevie. Oh, yeah. Oh, you did that. Did you have it? He did. Keep it going. Keep going.
Thank you, your worship.
All right, so go ahead, Steve.
Moved by myself, thank you, Mr. Mayor, moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Martel that the committee receives and approves closed session minutes dated June 12th, 2023.
There, all in favor? Good, all right, so that we met to I've already done the land purchase. The second portion was that we received and approved the minutes dated June 12th, 2023. Apology for the missing of that, and I think the last item then would be adjournment. And Councilor Martel, do you have?
Moved by myself, seconded by
Sorry,
Councillor
hold on.
Waddy Snail.
Hold on.
All the minutes.
Thank you for that. I thought I did it all in favor. I did. Thought I did. All in favor. Let's everybody. Okay, sorry, go.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Waddy Snail. The committee does now adjourn at 10:30 PM. Thank you.
All right, I will return to call the question for this, all in favor? Carried. Good, we're done.
That's